world, which we have to address. That means Russia has to stop. Now, the good news, if Russia ends the war, now I'll bring this up during the show. Oh, we're live. Okay.
I figured I would just spring that on you at the last second to, because nobody ever pays attention to the clock here.
Oh, I see the clock.
No, but I just noticed it. But here's my thought. So we need Russia. If Russia is able to end the conflict with the Ukraine, which probably will be a ceasefire, Russia keeps what they've taken so far. Ukraine gets to exist. It's a temporary measure until we get another weak president. But if that happens, then you see that we already have, because of the energy policies that are coming from the Trump administration, Germany and parts of Europe are looking to get more American oil, natural gas mostly. And that's going to take some pressure off of them. But at the same time, they are still going to be getting Russian gas. That means Russia will now be able to trade on open markets. Several of the sanctions will go away. That will improve their economy. It takes the war effort off of them so they don't have to keep pressing with that. They're going to go into a rebuild phase. That means that they no longer need as much China and Iran and North Korea, which is minor, but they don't need them as much because they can now trade with the rest of the world on their rebuild effort, which means that coalition breaks because they don't like each other. They hate each other. They just happen to hate America more, especially when America has a weak president. So that breaks the coalition because Russia's a key linchpin to all of that. When that breaks, Iran, which is already sensing this, is already starting to back down, even though the Houthis are they're all getting in their last licks now, but they are winding down. Hamas is going to get back the dead bodies. Iran's going to get real quiet because they can't fund terrorism like they used to. The Houthis will shut up and go back to their regional war, trying to take that over. China will hold off on taking Taiwan, and they're going to make a deal with the Philippines that'll probably benefit them, but again, takes off some of the pressure so they can continue to rebuild their Navy, which was targeted by 2028 to double the size of the U.S. Navy. But I think that's going to change because Trump will probably start a new phase of building up new warships to make sure we can keep pace with China. Now, we see all of these things happening. That means that the economy, starting in 2026, with the food now being able to be grown and harvested, and with energy being more moderated and more free and available, we have more inflow of funds because we're helping Europe. We're going to see that the U.S. economy will pull itself out of the recession 2026 into 2027, which will lift up all of Europe and most of our allies who are currently already in recessions. They get to get out. We see a new level of stability around the world. Now, that's on the international, which has, as you can see, direct influence on the U.S. You match that with the fact that we are going to be moving right, not center right. Trump is moving to the right, which aligns us with Europe, which has been moving center right, which is moderate Democrat to us, but center right for them. That's a huge wave, a huge momentum. We could see unprecedented growth, but people have to temper this, and the media is going to hate this. The first year is going to be horrific. It's going to be very difficult economically. And very touch and go politically. And the left is going to be demonizing everything that delays in this process. And I think they're going to try and do that so they can get power in 2028. But if I'm right, by the time the midterms come, we will see the fruition of several of these events and an improvement. We'll probably see January, the deficit is they're going to increase the deficit ceiling to 37 trillion. But we will see a slowdown in the increase. We won't hit 37. We're going to see a slowdown before we can hit 36 trillion because of the governmental efficiency department. And that's going to basically keep us almost, we're going to be backtracking as much as we are spending. So it's going to basically leave us neutral.
Right.
I think in a year, based on what Trump is doing right now, we see enormous benefit. But it's the left is unsettled. And I was just talking to someone about this just before you guys came on. And the answer is the left, now it's not enough that they demonize, because they've done that. They've done that for 8 years, going to be doing it for another 4. They're against the wall. They can't react. They don't have a plan. They don't have a leader. Their answer in that vein, as they see themselves losing power, is violence. You're going to see riots. You're going to see autonomous zones and riots. And Trump is going to put a hammer down, cutting off every one of the colleges. He's going to cut out all of the states that are doing the sanctuary cities and sanctuary states. They're all going to get cut in terms of finances. That's going to be the linchpin that determines whether this will be a good 4-year term or a very chaotic 2 years.
Yeah.
So I've laid all out. Tell me, guys, what do you think of my observations?
I think Leon is getting larger.
Who?
Elon.
Elon?
Leon.
Elon.
Well,
Elon.
well, no. I just figured I would. If you're a fan of the Airplane movie, I figured I would throw in one of the funnier lines, because you just hit us with a whole bunch of heavy shit before we even did the show intro.
I didn't know we were live. I thought we had more time.
I tried to sort of break up your momentum a little bit and say, hey, we're live, but you just decided to go into a geopolitical rant there to pretty much say every topic of the evening in less than 4 minutes.
I'm good. What can I say?
Now we can expound on that.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us for this week's edition of the Weekly Roundtable. I am Frank Johnson, co-host of the show, co-founder of the Liberty First Foundation, ever popular host of the Range Report YouTube channel, also available on Rumble and other social media outlets. To my right is Michael Vasquez, Dragon of the Southern Tier, now Dragon of all of the boroughs of New York, New York's only true independent journalist, and of course our resident wise ass in chief, Dal Grimm, who's also coming to us from some undisclosed New York location under the control and dominion of the evil Hochul.
Empress Hochul, first of her name.
I will not refer to her as Empress. Just a quick New York soundbite. It's been a week since we've gotten our results back. And Hochul has already done a 180 on her Midtown toll price stuff, and so now if you live in New York and if you work downtown and you got to go uptown for something, well, you're gonna have to pay a toll to travel across the same island.
Yeah.
If you midtown or downtown and you got to go uptown for something, you know, you're over by the Trade Center, you got to get to Columbus Square where you got to pay $9 toll now to go across your own friggin' city. They're calling it congestion pricing.
I couldn't remember. That's only if you're trying to drive it yourself, right? You can take public transport, you bypass that toll.
Oh yeah, but if you're taking public transportation and you got to go from downtown to midtown, it's going to take you 6 hours to get there.
Right.
You know, and if you're going to take a cab, well, all right. So it might not take you 6 hours to get there. You just have to deal with the smell of urine, feces, 30,000 additional migrants who sort of, you know, treat the subway as their own personal toilet and an ATM machine, because the crime on the subways is ridiculous now.
And not a Daniel Penny in sight, right?
Yeah, well, you know, if you want to discourage people from doing the right thing, charge them with murder when they defend themselves. That's always a great thing to do. But New York sucks, and you know what? I don't care no more. I don't live there. And the people in New York, they keep voting for their own demise, and then they bitch, moan, and complain when it happens to them. And they go, we got to move. Yeah, well, guess what? You ain't got no money to move now because you just spent all your money in property taxes to live in that crap hole, New York. And I can say that because I was born and raised there. So it's not like I'm speaking without,
pre-knowledge,
some basis in fact here. All right, listen. First things first. Last week I had to preemptively extract myself from the show last week. As you guys remember, I had a whole bunch of surgery following an accident a couple of years ago. I had to have my ankle reconstructed and everything. Well, I went and I got myself a little bit of a job, thinking that I could go take care of some things, make a little bit of money on the side, and do it within the restrictions that I had. Well, no such luck. I have subsequently, it appears, torn up all of the ligaments and tendons in my foot that was surgically repaired. So
already? Damn.
Yeah, all it took was a couple of days of walking around on concrete, not even lifting anything.
Wow.
To completely undo the surgery that I had 2 years off my feet from. So I'm looking into that, trying to figure out how to have that done. But last week was Wednesday was, for what you saw me on the screen for, I was in immense pain. And what was happening is I had at my feet, I had an ice bath that my feet were in.
Right.
Well, that my one foot was in, because the swelling was ridiculous on my ankle. It was twice the size of the other one. Well, at some point or another, one of my cats decided to come over and investigate what was going on, and she put her weight on the edge of the foot bath thing, and it's one of those collapsible ones. So she collapsed it, and I had like 3 gallons of ice water pour all over the kitchen floor. So I had to jump off the screen because my power supply was sitting on the floor.
Oh,
so. I mean, even though it's GFCI and all that was fine, I had to extract myself from it to prevent my computer from frying, or my cat from frying, or myself from frying. But by the time I got it cleaned up, I was like, it's too late to go back on. I can't even stand.
So that was your fork in the toaster moment.
Yeah. Well, listen, I am a big proponent of handing every child a fork and pointing them to an electrical outlet. Just so that they can learn that lesson once when they're young and never have to worry about learning it
again. Yeah.
But yeah, I have since rendered myself incapacitated again. So for this past week, I've been walking around with a heavy brace on my foot and caning and crutching everywhere around the house.
Oh,
so
man.
I got to figure out what's going to happen, because my workers' comp case from the original injury sort of closed out already. Yeah. So now I got to figure out, okay, well, what do I do now? Is there a warranty on my surgery? Because the surgery was less than a year ago, to repair all this stuff. And it was funny because after my surgery, they said, all right, well, you're going to go in for like 3 months of rehab after the surgery. But after the surgery, I had to stay off my feet for 2 months. So I was in a brace and a cast and everything, because all the ligaments had to go. And the night I went for my first episode of therapy, where it was just basically to examine me and how the surgery went, before they started doing anything to me. I went in, they examined me, and they just wanted to check what the range of motion looked like and see what was going on, how the incisions were all healing. And they didn't work at anything at all. So they put me back in a soft brace, and they said, okay, just try, keep your weight off of it a little bit. Well, that night I went home, and as I was rolling around in bed, I heard a loud snap in my ankle and felt it. And I went through the friggin' roof. I said, oh shit, something bad just happened. Got in contact with the doctor. I got in contact with the therapist. They said, we're not going to do anything to you until you can go see the surgeon. So I went and I saw the surgeon the following day. And without an MRI, without an X-ray, without anything, said, well, you may or may not have torn something that we fixed in there, but it doesn't appear to be serious, because there's like dozens of components to it, and some of them they expect to stretch and tear a little bit. So he just chalked it up to that. So they suspended my therapy for like a month till the pain went back down. went through therapy. It hurt every friggin' time. I've never have had a day without pain since. And then, they were like, okay, well, these are your sedimentary restrictions. You're going to be permanently disabled, as a matter of this. You're never going to get full use of it back, and the pain should subside. Well, the pain got to about an average of 3 on a 1 to 10 scale that I've been living with every day. And said, all right, I should be able to at least walk around for 8 hours a day or do something without, major complication. Did work for a couple of days, and then by the end of the second day, middle of the second day, my foot just gave way out from under me. It was like I lost control under it. And I said, oh, shit, this ain't good.
Yeah.
Went back, contacted, there's nothing we can really do for you. There's nothing we can really do for you. You're out of comp. It's not our responsibility anymore.
Mhm.
So now I got a foot flopping around in a killer bee, and I can't do a damn thing about it.
Ugh.
So this is the life. So now I just got to figure out how to make a living on my good looks and personality. So if anybody's got a suggestion.
Nope. I'm still trying to, political commentary, news, independent news doesn't pay. Oh, well, it doesn't pay, period. So I'm not better off.
I'm gonna start doing bookings for public speaking. I'm gonna start doing the public speaking tour. I'm gonna give a TED talk this weekend.
You are?
Yeah,
Really?
My neighbor. His name is Ted. I'm gonna go over to his house, and I'm just gonna
start somewhere.
Give him a little bit of a spiel. Yeah, but it's funny. I was looking. I've done a number of speaking engagements. Vass, you've done speaking engagements.
Mm-hmm.
You know what the whole thing is about. And now you look at, like, on my LinkedIn profile, it gives all my business information and everything, but basically to promote Liberty First Foundation.
Right.
That's what it is on the range report. And, as a matter of course, you always document your experiences because you're inviting people to check out what you're doing. You're trying to grow your brand. You're trying to do this. You're trying to do that. So I put up my GOA speech, the latest one I did for GOA.
Mm-hmm.
And every day I'm getting like 24 invitations from all of these people. Oh, we could help improve your speaking career. We could do this. We could do that. Come to this seminar. Come to this. I've never friggin' heard of you. I like to think
Rumble a lot.
I like to think I'm pretty well versed in our community, that I know a lot of the movers and shakers. I know the people whose names make waves and stuff like that, because we deal with all of them on a regular basis. I mean, I have a Rolodex of who's who that I could pick up and call at any time.
Right.
But I don't ever try to cash in on any of that stuff. But I know these people. And you have all of these people, oh, for $1,300, you can come to a weekend seminar. And what?
You know what? I don't fault those guys. I mean, it's a business, but they're trying to capture the new people, young people who have never run a business, probably never worked, and they think that streaming is an easy job, that they can just step in and either because of looks or personality or other aspects of themselves, that they can just jump on in and it's easy work. They don't realize, like, when you go and you have to travel. You, Frank, you've traveled, you're going to events, you are doing the work every day. I mean, you're a licensed firearm instructor. You've been doing this for years. You go to the range on a regular basis. You are doing product demos all the time. I've been doing this 18 years. I run out to events all the time. I have events booked on the 25th already. I already have one of the mayoral candidates for New York. I've booked that and have a schedule for that. I'm going to be on a show on Monday, but that's because I also spend somewhere around 8 to 14 hours a day reading the news, going through all the news internationally and nationally, and reading the legislation on a regular basis. And I've been doing this for 18 years. And neither you nor I, Frank and me, and same thing for Mike and Dow, we're not making money off this. That's why we need people to like and share and subscribe. Absolutely, because that's the only way we even get close to break even, is that this stuff is absolutely inexpensive. So I get it. They're preying on the hopes and dreams of someone saying, well, I'm going to be the next Steven Crowder, or I'm going to be the next Ethan Klein or Hassan. They think they're going to be this new superstar. And realistically, 90% of the people who start doing this, just for people who don't know, well, maybe not quite that high, but about 70% that start in this as a career don't make it a year. You don't realize how hard this is. This is not as simple as I just show up. There's a lot of work that happens behind the scenes that people just do not realize. And most of it is not going to make you money. It will cost you money.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you and I, Vas, we share a screen for 2 hours a week, and stuff like that. And what you do and what I do are completely different from what Dal does, completely different from what Marshall does. Our 2 hours a week that we spend together is a culmination of the work we're doing elsewhere. And that's why we're able to bring a different flavor, a different voice, a different viewpoint, all basically looking to get down to the same destination, just different paths in which way to get there. For me, I laugh with how many people sit there and think that I got another comment this week about, oh, it must be so nice to get free stuff. I'm like, dude, you have no friggin' clue. You have no friggin' clue what my tax bill looks like at the end of the year.
Yeah.
I mean, people, you gotta free this or free that. Yeah, all right, let's deduct my travel, let's deduct my time, let's deduct my expenses, let's deduct the room, the board, the gas, the flight time, the traveling back and forth, the revenue that I lose when I'm not where I'm home, actually, where I could actually make money. Let's deduct all of that, and then let's start adding in expenses. Marshall will attest to what we pay for, broadcast time, what we pay for websites, what we pay for this, all this stuff that we pay for. Oh, you got a gun for free. Yeah, I got a $249 gun that cost me $1,600 to get. And then I have to pay 34% income tax on the value of that gun, because along with that gun also comes a 1099 form that says that it's an income. So when somebody sends it to it, I still have to pay the tax on the gun. I still have to pay for everything that goes along with it. I don't have an agency brokering deals like a lot of the other people that you see on a lot of these channels, where they say, oh, we're getting this, we're all getting all kinds of stuff. They have an agent that brokers all those deals for them. And when you see a guy giving a review online and he's not telling you he got a check for $5,000 or $10,000 to do that review, and he's not telling you, oh, well, we did a 1,000-round review on this gun. All right, I do 1,000-round review of every gun that we do. Every gun. For me to do a 1,000-round review on a 1911 is $390, because that's what it cost me for a case of 45 ammunition that I have to pay for.
Well, that doesn't count your range fees and your gas tuned from the range.
No, I got one range cost me $600 a year to shoot outside. Another range outside cost me $300. My indoor range costs me $1,700 to shoot indoors. And the only reason I'm able to the only reason I do the one indoors is because I can go at 2:00 in the morning when nobody's there. Most of the video that you see on my YouTube channel is shot at 2:00 in the morning or later. So when everybody else is home and sleeping and doing what they're doing, I've just completed 8, 10, 12 hours worth of work, then have to load up 150 pounds of camera equipment, another 200 pounds of gear, ammunition, and all the rest of that stuff to go over to the range, because at 2:00 in the morning, the range isn't open. I have access to the lanes, but I don't have access to the rest of the commercial side. So if I need targets, I need ammo, I need this, I have to have everything with me, because I can't go buy anything at 2:00 in the morning. Oh, crap, I just ran my batteries for my camera, just crapped out. Well, I have to have 8 of them, to make sure I always have it, because I can't afford to run back and forth. What we do is ridiculously expensive. And not once have any of us ever asked anybody, with the exception of saying, hey, if you guys would be kind enough to join up so you can get on our mailing list and help us, fund anything. We don't ask for donations. We don't ask for handouts. We don't sell you swag. We don't try to do this. We don't try to do that. We've tried a lot of those things, and we said, hey, we'll put a line of t-shirts out, nice t-shirts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What's the t-shirt cost? $17.99. How much is a t-shirt?
We sold 5.
Yeah, we sold 5. What does it cost us to produce those t-shirts? $13. But
I do have to say, though, full disclosure, on my channels, separate of this, and they're coming for me, but on my
the
channel,
IRS.
That's fire.
But on my channel, I do ask for Patreon donations, mind you. I'm not rich. I'm not. Hell, I don't even qualify to be poor. I'm that far down.
Patreon is not a donation.
True.
Patreon is a subscription service. People are paying to get onto Patreon, and they're following you on Patreon because you're getting value for their investment. They're purchasing a subscription in order to get information from you, and in order to get updates or anything else. Now, if somebody wants to give you a little bit of something, hey, you know what? That's great. Sometimes when people going on YouTube and they go, hey, we're going to throw something in the super chat for you. Hey, great. I really appreciate that. Really, everything that somebody throws to us appreciates us. It helps us, keeps the light on. But when people say, oh, they think they see you online or something, they recognize you from somewhere, they think all of a sudden that you got the like whistling diesel money. Like I could afford to go buy a friggin' Ferrari just to blow it up in a cornfield.
This is a tough career. People don't realize it's a tough career.
I found an ammo box. I found an ammo can, one of my ammo cans in the garage the other day while I was cleaning out.
It was like
you had to see. Dude, there were 12 boxes of ammo in this can that I forgot about.
Yeah.
Each box was open. I had like 4 rounds of 45 in one box, like 6 rounds of 9mm in another. I found there were 2 boxes of 40 caliber hollow point ammunition in there from Hornady. I was like, holy crap, this is awesome. I don't own a 40 caliber. Okay, so I don't know the 40s. So I got really excited over 2 $25 boxes of ammunition that I got. I don't own a 40 caliber. I realized, where did I get these from? I traded 2 boxes of 45 for him at the range because the guy who mistakenly bought it, and I said, well, maybe one day I'll review a 40, so I'll just keep these here. I figured it's no loss. But it was like you find $100 worth of crap, and you're like, holy Jesus, this is like the greatest gift ever.
Yep.
But I do want to bring up a couple things because it is coming up in the chat. And by the way, chat, we love to hear your comments. We love your questions because you guys make it really important. I know Oren was asking a question earlier, which is, who's the guy that Trump is appointing for defense secretary? He hadn't heard of him. Now, I did mention we're going to go into this in a little more detail in a little bit. But as I mentioned, this is Pete Hegseth. Sorry, it's going to take a minute to get used to saying his name. Pete Hegseth. Now, the mainstream media is going to tell a lot of people that this guy is just someone on he's a personality on Fox and Friends. Part-time.
He's a part-time TV host. That's how the left is trying to paint this guy. He's a part-time TV host and therefore unqualified to be, a person in this stature.
Right. And it's completely dishonest. And this is part of the dishonesty we've been seeing. He's been in 2 tours under combat conditions. He's got degrees from Harvard and Yale. He's a colonel. He's served 20 years in the United States military. He's currently in the reserves. He is the real deal. He is and we don't have a lot of combat trained leadership. We built up more than we had. I mean, we had Vietnam, then we had Operation Desert Storm, and then we had the Iraq operations. Those are the only conflicts we've had. We haven't had a huge amount of the officer class that have actual military training in combat. A lot of them are based on theory. People like Mark Milley, who are more theoreticians, they're more paperwork individuals than they are actual in the field. So this makes a big difference. And it's one of the reasons why I think that Hegseth is actually a pretty good choice. Now, again, the left is very much absorbed with the fact that he's not a general. You don't need to be a general. You need to be effective.
Well,
You need to be efficient.
Well, this is the thing when it comes to the left. The left is a personality, emotion-driven machine. Right. That's what they're driven by. Personality and emotion. You've got to have that entertainment panache in order to be considered. Listen, Audie Murphy could come back from the dead tomorrow. Trump could appoint him Secretary of Defense, and they would say, Audie Murphy, you got a Hollywood actor as secretary, aside from the fact that he was 2 congressional, medals of honor, the highest, awards you could possibly get. The guy was a bona fide general, war hero. Yeah, but he would be considered an actor because he had a Hollywood career after his military service. But the left, these are the same people that will tell you Pete Hegseth is unqualified after 20 years of military service, tours in Iraq, Afghanistan, other hot zones around, and I'm sure he's done a lot of things in his military career that is still classified. He's not allowed to talk about. He's got degrees from Harvard, Yale, and everything else. He's also intricately involved in the media and how the media operates. So he's a really good fit for the show, but they'll tell you he's unqualified. But Bill Nye the Science Guy is going to run our complete environmental task force on how to reduce a guy who was a children's TV show, who was an engineer for Boeing. The guy designed airplanes, but he's going to be the guy they go to for environmental studies. They're going to promote Leonardo DiCaprio as the voice of climate science from his private jet with his 17-year-old girlfriends. And they're going to put Greta, what's her face? How dare you? They're going to put that one as the face. These are their experts. These are the people that if you're in the left, you have to follow them. You have to follow what they say because they are personalities. They're personalities. This is what gives them credence and credential on the left. And then when you have people that are qualified to do the job on the right, they're not qualified because they don't bow to the Hollywood altar.
Right.
Well, here's the thing, and I don't know if a lot of people have seen this yet, but that's what you're right, Frank. That's what they have been doing, but it's breaking. They have their facade has been broken because we're seeing people. This is from Michael Rappaport. Now, people may know him. He's an actor. He's been in a lot of movies. He's pretty well known. Also a director. He's also a very far, well, he's left of the left. He's a leftist and a solid Democrat, and they've lost him because of all the lies, because of all the things that we've seen revealed, because of how they just handled the 2024 election. They lost him, and he's nowhere near the right. He's nowhere near conservative. He's not even close to the center. He is left of the left, and here he is, and talking about this guy, Pete Hegseth, and even Michael Rappaport has to call out that he is more than qualified and capable of being able to do the job, that he is someone who should be respected. And the fact that Joy Reid is going out on MSNBC and she is making this about race, that she's making this about denying his obvious qualifications, that is as dishonest as you can get, that's pure propaganda. This is coming from the left scolding the news media and their attack because it's obvious what they are doing. They're trying to poison the well and prevent America from having qualified people in the cabinet positions because the Democrats are pissed off because they lost power and they don't have a plan to get it back. But
Yeah.
I thought that was something, I don't know if you guys had seen that he made this statement about what Joy Reid has been saying.
Yeah, I saw that, and it's because the other thing is that they expect everyone to bow to an authority bias, but the only way you get endowed with authority is if it's ordained and given by the left. And the only way, the only credit, no, the only prerequisite you require is that you are a follower of their secularized religion.
Now, Mike, you and I have served in the Marines.
Yes.
Okay. So so part of what I am saying is based on the understanding of combat Marines, individuals who've been in combat command. When you're in command and you've been in combat, you have a very different view than someone who sits behind a desk. And I think you'll agree with me, Mike. I love following the orders of somebody I know who's been in the trenches and been shot at just like I have. I have no problem having trust and faith in their orders and their understanding of intelligence when they send us out and say, we're going to go this way and that way. We're going to take on the enemy. Not to say that they're perfect, but you know what? They are there. They've been in the heart of it. They've done it. They're great. And by the way, this was good enough. He has the same, if not better, credentials than Waltz, Tim Walz. And they were going to make Tim Walz vice president. And Tim Walz, doesn't have the credentials that Pete Hegseth has. And they want to talk about his qualifications. He's got more qualifications than the governor of, he's governor of Minnesota. And he's actually a combat veteran, unlike Tim Walz. But Mike, you tell me, am I off base here? Am I letting my bias towards Marines get to me?
No. Thing is when you're in that situation, you gain experience. Okay, will you make mistakes? Yeah, everybody makes mistakes. But again, like I said, when you're in that position, you gain experience. The more experience you have, the less mistakes you're going to make. And when you do make mistakes, they're not going to be as catastrophic because you understand the implications of the decisions you make.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Cost lives.
There's a saying, you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And you learn that through experience. You don't learn it in a classroom. Okay, there's some things that are great taught in the classroom. Military operations, yeah, you can learn theories and so forth about operations and stuff, but you're not going to learn what you really need to know. That you get under fire.
Right.
Yep, I agree with that. And by the way, probably should slip this in. Obviously, to the Marines, happy 249th birthday, my fellow brother Marines, my sister Marines across the world.
Hoorah.
We all here love you and hope that you've had the Marine Corps birthday in peace wherever you were serving. And if you didn't, kick ass. I hope you kicked ass if you couldn't. And of course, to all of our veterans out there, we, of course, send you our love. And by the way, with all the picks that Trump has made, I think the VA, guys who have to need the VA services, I think you're going to see probably the best improvement in VA, Veteran Affairs Services, that we have seen under any president in the last, 40, 50 years. I truly believe that Trump has been very careful in who he's picked, and each of the people he's picked, like, again, Pete Hegseth, he's known for his unending effort to help veterans. The VA is maybe finally going to be better for our veterans, and they deserve the best of treatment.
I want to make a quick comment about Hegseth. They did a brief, like just off the cuff poll of Hegseth and what people thought of him, hoping to get a negative result. This was by one of the media groups, and actually one of the biggest respondents were women. They approved of Hegseth because he's built and cute. So he's qualified. The women love him.
Well,
Tattoos don't hurt.
And there's that as a factor. I don't know.
He's younger, so he doesn't look like your usual frumpy politician. He looks like he could actually handle himself. I think that's going to go a long way to presenting an image of strength when it comes to our defense, or Secretary of Defense.
The impression of the impression of strength is strength, especially to your enemies. I think that. What are you going to say, Frank?
Well, I was going to say, the only thing that I could say negative about Hegseth so far is Lori doesn't like him.
Why?
Oh, is that right?
He doesn't like dogs.
Okay.
Listen, in this house, if you're not a dog lover, you got a problem.
He probably likes cats better. Or maybe he was for Peanut. Poor Peanut. May he rest.
Well, if you're a dog lover, you probably already, a friend of Peanut's anyway.
Yeah.
Peanut and Fred. You're probably a fan of them. But Lori's like, he doesn't like dogs. I'm like, what are you talking about? We're going to sleep and we get the thing. Hegseth is getting the nomination. She doesn't like dogs. So what are you talking about? He doesn't like dogs. And
I didn't even know if he had a pet.
She pulls up an article from like 6 years ago where I don't know the context of the article. I don't know the quote. She didn't read the article. She just showed me the thing. And she goes, look, he doesn't like dogs. What kind of asshole is this guy? And it's like, I don't know.
The kind of asshole that's able to run our military.
Yeah. Well, let me look into it tomorrow and find out what's going on. Maybe he doesn't like a particular breed of dog. Maybe he doesn't like a specific dog. I don't know, but it's a very touchy subject in our house because we adopted a reject from the U.S. Army bomb training school.
Oh,
we had a German Shepherd named Maverick who he went through bomb training school in the U.S. Army, and the problem with him, he could locate the bombs great. The problem with Maverick is that he would bring them back. So he would find the explosive package and then bring them back to the handler. They said this is not a good thing. Now, here's the thing. Now, I see Lori in the comment section chiming in. I'm actually surprised she's watching. But here's the thing why it's a very touchy subject for Lori and I when it comes to the military. The military uses dogs in a lot of different capacities.
Right.
The problem that we have with it is the way that some of these animals are disposed of when no longer needed.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of our military canines that did not volunteer for it, but were raised into it and pretty much told they were going to do it, did not have a choice in the matter. And it's not like a dog's going to have a choice in the matter, but there's been dogs that were left behind. There were dogs that have been sacrificed. There have been dogs that were told to be put down.
Yeah.
And stuff like that, because the military doesn't look at the dog as a sovereign being, doesn't look like it as the companion of the handler, the protector of the handler. They look at the animal as a piece of equipment.
Yep.
And me personally, I know a lot of guys. I run in circles with a lot of guys who are dog handlers from different branches of the military, and they would lay down their own lives to protect their dogs.
Absolutely.
Because of how much those dogs have meant. And when you've got Chesty Pulver and you've got such a long history of animals in our military rescuing and saving the lives of American service members, I believe that those animals need to be treated with a hell of a lot more respect and dignity. And I just hope that our new Secretary of Defense, if he's not a dog lover, will at least learn to appreciate the fact that our men and women put their lives in the paws of these animals every day, and these animals do some of the most amazing work that humans could not ever do.
Yeah.
And I think, as a society, I look at a society by how they do three things: how they treat their elderly, how they treat their children, and how they treat their animals. And especially when those interests are in service to others, how well you reciprocate towards them is an indicator of how good your society is.
Yeah.
And I just want to know that our service animals are treated a lot better than they have been in the past.
The Marines had a duck.
Go ahead.
The Marines had a duck.
What?
World War II, there was a duck that served with the Marines.
Yeah.
Landed on the island and fought the Japanese.
Well, look, I know there's going to be people that say, "Oh, in the scheme of it, it's just an animal. It's just an animal."
No.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that because he is a combat commander, he has a very different view of the military and all the aspects of the military. So it may be a concern. Is it? I have to tell you that honestly, it's not my first concern right now. I think there's a lot of things. The VA is a first concern.
This is why it is a very first concern for me. This is why something like this is a first concern for me, because if your heart, okay, if you're the kind of person that can look at something as loyal and genuine and as valuable as a dog, or any animal that's in service. There's horses that we still use in stuff like that. If you can look at these things as being something that is disposable, I got a problem with that.
I'm not saying that it should be disposable. I'm not saying that, and I do appreciate it. I'm a dog owner myself. You guys know that, but is that the preeminent issue facing America now? Is it something that he can take up? Yeah, probably. I don't know. And quite honestly, until you were bringing it up, it really wasn't an issue that I've been thinking about and following politics and following these issues. So I don't know that it's the first, but I can tell you that if I have to compare a general who sits behind a desk mostly and someone who's combat trained and their priorities, more likely the combat vet is going to have more compassion and more concern about that.
Well, hopefully Hegseth has spent enough time in combat and with people that handle these animals, that owe their lives to these animals, where he does get an understanding of how valuable they are and how that they become a team, and I mean, there's been entire patrols launched to go after people who've gone after service animals.
I know.
All right.
Yeah.
This is, but it's also a matter of understanding. It's also a matter of understanding the men and women who serve, because the men and women who serve with these animals have got such a deep bond. These animals that's greater than blood.
I know.
It's thicker than blood.
No.
If you don't understand that bond, or you can't appreciate that bond as much as somebody else does, it puts space, it puts air between you and the people that you're overseeing. And I don't want there to be space there. I want the person who's in charge of our military to not only be a member from the ranks, but somebody who understands every aspect of them emotionally, because that's going to translate into how we treat our troops later on down the road when it comes to issues of PTSD, traumatic brain injury care years after the fact, how it relates to how we treat our veterans at the VA, what goes on as far as veterans finding employment later on, finding financing, getting bank loans and everything else. Because when you understand everything that the veterans go through, you have a better understanding of what the average veteran is going to go on through life years after their service. And it's not so much that the years that they put in while they're in uniform that makes a veteran. It's the lives that they live after their service, because service to country doesn't end when your tour is up. Service the country with a veteran goes on for the rest of their lives because they're members of the community, they're pillars of the community, they're the teachers, the police, the firemen, the engineers, the lawyer, they're every aspect of your life, but they're also the kids' baseball coaches, the wrestling coaches, the soccer coaches. They have such an instrumental part. And every facet of military life has got to be something that gets taken into consideration from the highest member of our offices to the lowest member of the office, because that's how you are all brothers.
No,
all of you are brothers. And you know, when I see a guy like Hegseth, I'm like, man, I'm glad he's the choice. I'm glad this is somebody that they could have put in and done what they do. I just hope he has more of an appreciation for dogs than I heard, because it's something that leaches into the community.
I don't know that that's been one. I can guarantee no one on the media, the mainstream media, has asked that question.
Yeah,
and it probably won't be a question asked by the mainstream media. What I would suggest is we should probably send him an email and ask him and get a direct quote from him and the Trump administration about that. But I don't know that that definitely isn't one of the questions that are going to come up about his confirmation. It's not going to come up in the Senate.
If anything, they're going to be asking questions about his expression of disdain for woke policies of the Pentagon leaders. They're going to ask him about possible conflicts with the Joint Chiefs of Staff of the Air Force, General C.Q. Brown, who Hegseth has accused of pursuing radical positions of left-wing politicians, and that's an actual quote from Reuters. So that's probably going to be more on the table and in the focus. But it's not a bad question to ask, because you're right, Frank. How you treat your service animals relates to how you're going to look at the team members that work with those animals, and it does translate later into things like dealing with guys that have PTSD. A lot of service animals, if they're not disposed of right as a piece of equipment, a lot of times the guys these teams, they try to stay together after their tour is over. And even those dogs will sometimes wind up being retrained as therapy animals for vets.
Well, because I know that I'm sitting here listening. I know, like, our counterparts in Britain, over since the Gulf War, not the first one, but since the second time we went in after 2001,
right?
Our British counterparts have destroyed 1,300 of their service animals.
Wow,
1,300.
Yeah,
and that's not because they're old. It's not because they're disabled. It's not because they came home from service, and the military destroyed the dogs before bringing them home.
No, I understand the concern, but I can guarantee you that's not going to be a question that's going to come. Senate. What they're going to ask about is, does he understand white fragility? Does he also read about the DEI that we saw from Mark Milley talking about how CRT, critical race theory, how does that apply into our military? Is he going to support the trans soldiers, the movement in our military? That's what the left is going to be asking when they look to confirm him. They're more concerned about their political social experiment, not the service animals.
You mean the one that's failing?
Yeah. I mean, they're going to ask him about, do you support trans in the military? They're going to ask him about do you believe in CRT in there? Is that affecting the military? Are you a white supremacist? That's what you're going to hear Cory Booker come up with these questions. You're going to hear this from Chuck Schumer when he comes up for the confirmation. And I think it's absolutely ridiculous, because those aren't the questions that we should have. I would love if they would ask him about the dog, but they're not.
They won't, but you know what? I bet you he would appreciate us reaching out and asking him about the
That's
dog.
what I'm saying. We can reach out. Absolutely.
We can do that and ask him. He probably would be more than happy to talk about it because it won't be something that we'll have to deal with like left-wing authoritarianism.
Yeah, and
They'll twist it.
I would like his
What's
answer.
that?
They'll twist it if they can.
Oh yeah.
No, they'll
Guaranteed.
try and twist everything.
They'll take
Well-
something out of context.
Either way, but we'll still have it in the raw form.
Oh, speaking of, before we go on, there was a couple of things I wanted to address because it's actually something that came up with Lori and me this morning. There's a big hoo-ha over Hegseth's tattoo collection.
What?
All right, Hegseth.
Okay. He's
all
got a sleeve. Yeah, I know.
all right,
Okay.
he's got a collection of tattoos. All right.
Okay.
One of them an anime girl.
All right. And the left is already trying to figure out what the iconography, symbolism, and what white supremacy groups, these tattoos are already associated
Oh my
with.
God, really?
I
Yeah,
got.
now,
You know how many tattoos I have?
all right,
I
listen,
know people don't realize it. I got tattoos. I got tattoos when I was in the Corps. Just about every Marine I know of, every Marine I've ever served with, and everyone I know of has at
Well,
least one, if not multiple tattoos. What's that
well,
supposed
there
to
is an exception that I know of to the rule. My father didn't get any tattoos, but my father was also assigned as personal bodyguard for Eisenhower. So I think Eisenhower kind of, may have had some influence on that.
Well, no, that's why everyone gets the tattoos. When
Yeah,
you're
it
in
is
service, you get them
conspicuous.
where you can't see them, but
Right.
everyone has them.
All right,
I have several.
all right. Now, one of the tattoos that Hegseth has is a Deus Vult.
Oh, yeah.
VULT. Okay.
Yeah,
it's
Deus Vult.
Latin. It's Latin for, it means by God's will.
Yeah.
This is something that was adopted by a lot of military service members. I mean, if I am to die in battle, it's God's will. If I am to come home from battle, it's God's will. My life is in God's hands. That's what it is. Well, it was first adopted in Latin as being something associated with the Crusades, with the Christian Crusades from 1095. So naturally, they're saying, "Oh well, clearly."
Hegseth is a Templar.
Here's where it gets a little. Now, Templar iconography has been adopted by militaries around the world.
Yeah.
All right, especially for ones that where the soldier or the person in battle considers themselves to be of Christian heritage.
Yep.
And they'll believe it. Lori said to me that this morning that they were accusing Hegseth of having the Iron Cross on his chest. That there was an incident at Biden's administration. It said something about the Biden inaugural, where Hegseth was slated to be one of the participants at the Biden inaugural because I guess that's because he's still military.
Yeah,
that part of his detail was, and that he was according to Hegseth, told he couldn't be a part of the inaugural because of his tattoos. That Biden found out he had an Iron Cross tattoo. And Lori says,
guys got that.
all right, I don't know.
It's not
All
unusual.
No, it's not. It's not unusual.
It's the Templar's cross where the arms are equal. The Iron Cross. The Iron Cross is something completely different.
Right. The Iron Cross. All right. Which also is to counter some people's belief. The Iron Cross is not Nazi.
No,
it's not. No, the Iron Cross has been used in the German military since the 1800s.
Yeah, even older. The Iron Cross was actually symbolism in the Holy Roman Empire. That's where it comes from.
Yeah, it goes all the way back. Now, the cross that Hegseth has is actually a series of crosses. It's 5 crosses in one, and it's not a German cross at all. It's a Templar cross.
Right. The Templar cross was adopted by was brought to Germany and used during the Holy Roman Empire, and it is adopted from the Templars
and is still being used by the Swiss Guard.
Yep.
is still being used by the English military, is still being used by the military of Finland, still being used by a multitude of the they put so much into iconography trying to tear things apart. The swastika has been around, has the first documented evidence of the swastika is from the year 800.
Yeah.
No, I know. But you got to remember, they're trying to find a way.
They're trying to find the little pieces of straw they can pull out to try and draw some sort of a link.
They're trying to find. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, just so people know, in case they're not aware, the Swiss Guard are the ones that protect the Vatican. So they're wearing the Templar crosses in Rome.
Right now, those Swiss Guard, those Swiss Guard, those guys are anti-immigration because they don't let nobody over that wall.
No. That wall has been
not when their boss is over there talking about how evil walls are, and that we shouldn't be building walls and Trump should be opening the doors. The Vatican's got 60-foot tall, 80-foot thick stone walls around it that are patrolled by the Swiss Guard with fully automatic weapons. But
it's interesting. But see, this is why you see people like Michael Rappaport and the left are breaking from the mainstream news media, from Hollywood, from the Democratic Party, because when you stop and they're trying to find the minutia of the minutia. And again, I easily would say 70-80% of military and Marine Corps have tattoos, either this tattoo or very similar tattoos, and have had them for many years. It is not what they are trying to make it out to be. They're trying to find a way to try and introduce it's sexism, it's racism, it's Trump, it's evil. MAGA is evil. That's what they're ultimately trying to point to.
Right.
And it doesn't hold up to any kind of introspection. And I'd say the same thing about what they're saying about Matt Gaetz. I mean, this is another one of the controversial, or what the left is trying to say is one of the controversial decisions now, because Matt Gaetz, as Attorney General for the United States, as Jan had mentioned earlier, Matt is now he's already resigning his position from the Congress. He's going to be accepting the position, and the left is losing their minds because they're going to be held accountable. They're going to be held accountable for the violations, like the
oh man, I did not know Matt Gaetz was Attorney General. Holy shit.
You didn't hear about that?
I had not heard about that yet.
No, he's been going breakneck. Obviously, all of this has been well planned out. The first time Trump went in, he wasn't sure what he should be doing, who he should talk to. This time, he knows exactly every single person, every single position he wants, and he's not wasting time. I've never seen an administration put together this fast.
He's spent the last 4 years figuring out who he is putting where.
Yeah, man, and so he's picked Matt Gaetz.
I'm looking at the list on Reuters of everybody that's been picked so far. Holy crap.
At least
this is great.
and I think his entire cabinet, if you were to look at everybody and then do an age of it, I think the average age of his whole cabinet is in their 40s.
Yeah.
It's probably 42 to 44 years old is the average age.
Old enough to have a lot of experience, but young enough that they're going to be able to carry on for a while.
And here's the thing. It's cabinet positions do not have to be confirmed because they are advisors. They are advisors only. So they do not have to be confirmed. The only positions that have to be confirmed are like Secretary of Defense,
Attorney General,
Secretary of Defense,
what about
Secretary of Treasury. Those types of positions do. But his cabinet positions, like Musk and
Vivek Ramaswamy,
they don't have to be approved. They don't have to be confirmed.
Secretary of State, that's one that has to be approved by the Senate, right?
Yes, that has to be confirmed.
But Republicans have 53 53 seats, so they've got that.
What about Director of National Intelligence?
Yes.
Confirmed. They'd have to be confirmed.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have Matt Gaetz in, and Matt Gaetz has been someone who has had a career asking for accountability. looking for efficiency and accountability in government, which
Now,
also
here's
ties
one
in. Go ahead.
thing that I do want to highlight on this.
Mm-hmm.
Trump pulling people that are already sitting in office could backfire. Gaetz, probably not. But Stefanik, guaranteed Democrats going to get appointed.
No. She's about the only one who's in a district that might, that they would have a battle to keep that, whether it's Republican or Democrat. Everyone else is in districts that are easily winnable by Trump or Republicans for the midterms. And I think Stefanik, like most of upstate New York, most people who don't know about New York politics, upstate, if you're not in one of the three major cities, is red. New York State, upstate is highly conservative in the counties, in the various election districts.
For Clinton County, for some stupid reason.
Well, there are exceptions, but overwhelmingly, out of the 62 counties, when you take out New York City, you take out Albany, Rochester, you wind up with, I believe it's about 35 out of the 62 are all deep red. And that includes Stefanik's district, which is, I think they remade it into the 21st district.
I mean, you get pockets like Broome County, like that.
Stefanik
purple.
is actually my district.
That's perfect. That's purple.
Yeah, Broome is like a very purple county.
Yeah, but again, that's why I said it's 35. It's a little more than half, but not quite, not 2/3. But it's very red. And if you look at the voting maps, you'll see it very clearly. You'll see the big cities go blue, and the rest of the state goes red. Most of the elections, most of the time. So she's the only one that really is questionable. Everyone else he's picked should be safe Republican seat. And I think that there is something to say to the momentum of, this isn't like, what's his name? Antonio Delgado, who was in charge of the New York 19 and just walked away from his seat to become lieutenant governor under Kathy Hochul. It wasn't that he was essential. It wasn't that he was running on this and telling people he would get it. When she got her promotion because Andrew Cuomo was kicked out due to 11 sexual assault cases by Letitia James, when he left, she got bumped up and she tapped on Antonio Delgado. And Delgado just said, all right, screw the people, and went away, which is why that election cycle, we saw that Mark Molinaro won it, even though it was a deep blue district by design by Democrats, because he said, screw you, and just walked away from the people.
Right.
But when you see someone who is getting tapped for a higher position, we're talking about the executive branch, high-end position, like we're seeing with Elise, I think that's something that you can be proud of, that the district is proud of, and they would want to. That keeps the momentum towards conservatives and Republicans, I think. People may disagree with me on that, but
it really depends on who they get to run for her seat. I mean, I don't think the Democrats would have an easy time flipping that county, but I believe that if they don't pick well, then you're going to see that a lack of strong leadership in that county is going to cause.
They don't have anyone. The Democrats at this point in New York's
I'm saying the Republicans in New York are not much better. So unless they get somebody like Elise Stefanik in to follow her up, then the Republican that they do put in, if they put a Republican in, is going to be ineffective and probably bend with the uniparties here in the state.
That is a concern, but I don't know. It's tricky, but I think, could that hurt in the midterms? Well, traditionally, midterm, the stronger the election win in the presidential year, the midterm usually reverses that, where you see the House and the Senate switch parties. So because Trump has won so well in the House and the Senate, the first 2 years are going to be very much Republican. And normally, by the time the midterm comes, you will see some of those gains be given back. And you could see potentially the House could flip back to the Democrats. Senate might be more even, 1 or 2 seat advantage for either party. That's normally what would happen. And if that happens, that would be exactly traditional. Now, of course, the Democrats will say it's a mandate and say something different, but that is historically what always happens.
That's why it's so critical that in the next 2 years that there is some delivery and gains from this administration for the people, because otherwise what's going to wind up happening is the traditional response.
But see, that's why I don't think that's going to happen. Let me just finish this thought, Mike, and now I'll shut up for a bit. But I'm looking at all of these different positions. I'm looking at, in combination with real change in terms of the Department of Government efficiency, which Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk would be going after, which is meant to shrink the size of government, cut the national debt or the deficit that we spend every year, to bring that down, which makes poor people richer. It helps the middle class keep their money. That's absolutely great for the economy. And that's something that, and it has built in, it has a window where it's going to shut down. It's not going to be voted on. It's not if, it's part of the creation of the department. It has a drop dead date of June 2026. It's going to go away. They've got 2 years essentially to do everything they can to cut the size of government, and then they're gone, period. Doesn't matter, effective or not. And I think what we're seeing is he is set up with all these appointments, people that are fully aware, they're all politically aware that they've got 2 years to put in place as much change as possible, as effective as possible. I thought he was going to go the slow road and build it up. It looks like he's going in whole hog, change the entire system as soon as possible, as quickly as possible, so that we can then see the benefits of that. But he'll lose the majorities that he has in the Senate and in Congress, in the House. So any further change after that is going to get blocked. But the first 2 years is all the change. And I'll shut up for a minute.
Actually,
you're right that typically at midterms, there is a flip-flop where the sitting president typically has an opposing Congress. Trump, looking at his game plan, looking at how fast he wants to run things out and rush things out in his first, before midterms, I think he's trying to buck that trend. I think he's trying to get things established, turn things around so quickly that it causes a ripple or a wave effect through the country to keep pushing towards more and more improvements, to keep our economy going, to keep our jobs building, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, keep our government going the right way instead of expanding, actually shrinking. With the government efficiency position ending in 2026, I personally wish it would be a permanent position. I think
I think it could be more corruption. If it goes on too long, it becomes more political, more corrupt. I think short term, just get in, cut, done.
What would be interesting, though, is if they put in a provision that says that that department can be created and abolished at any time. So if it turns out that you create it once, it has a
Actually, I would like
sundowning
to
period.
see it be a
Committee.
Trigger.
no committees. I'm trying to think how it needs to be something outside of government.
Yeah. Almost like Judicial Watch, like a watchdog group.
Yeah.
So kind of like an NGO, a non-governmental organization that works
Right.
side by side with the government.
Like the Federal Reserve.
Well, that could be one. I was thinking. See, that's my fear. Is the longer it stays, the more likely it becomes corrupt and doesn't do its job.
Well, the Office of Government Efficiency, if it does its job, should eventually be self-neutralizing.
Obsolete.
It
Right.
should be.
It should make itself obsolete.
Right. Why do groups exist to fight problems that exist on their own? But if groups that fought problems were effective, they wouldn't be needed.
Right.
Because they would win the fights, and then that would be the end of it. So the whole point of an office of
like a lot of Second Amendment foundation groups.
Right. An office of efficiency should say, okay, well, we've made everything efficient. No longer for us to be here anymore. And that's it. We'll keep a watchful eye as an individual voluntary organization, and if you want to send us a report, we'll have independent volunteers to look at the reports. And, if we start seeing you get out of control, we'll let you know. And if you want us to come back, we can, but they should be.
That's why I say it should be like
mission in life should be to not be needed.
That's why I was saying like a trigger would be better. Like there's something that triggers it, and if it gets beyond a certain point, and it comes back into being, and it starts slashing things, and then it goes away again once everything's stabilized.
The triggers are also kind of a weird thing too, because we have something called like what is it, the debt cap, or debt ceiling.
Debt ceiling, yeah.
And that's a trigger. We're not supposed to spend above that, but let's raise it every year. We don't spend above it, but we raise it every year. Triggers, anything where you set a goalpost, there's going to be somebody out there looking to move it. And that's the problem with triggers, is unless it's something that is immovable, somebody will figure out a way to manipulate it.
You want to get efficiency in government?
Defund them.
Get an outside organization group that reviews every piece of legislation for its constitutionality.
Judicial Watch was supposed to be doing that. That was one of their functions.
And give them the power to revoke legislation that's not constitutional.
But then you open the door, Michael, to corruption, because anytime that you give anybody the authority to overrule what Congress has set in place, they're going to be somebody out there who's
they have to prove that it's not constitutional.
Which they could do with the Supreme Court.
That's the only way that they can pull it, is if it's unconstitutional.
So what you could do is you could actually have
but then you have things that are unconstitutional. Well, you're gonna all I'm saying is people can be corrupted, and if you're looking for something that's not going to be, something that says it's not constitutional, and you want to address it, well, somebody with a bigger checkbook comes along and tells them to ignore it. That's any organization can be corrupted.
What you could do is you could have
have independent throw out the Constitution. Then is what you're saying.
No. But what you could do is you could have,
because that's what is needed. We have nobody holding anybody accountable to the Constitution at all.
Right. The only people that can hold anybody accountable for the Constitution when it comes down to it is the public. You know it as well as I do. Yeah. And unfortunately, we have a public that at least 48% of whom don't really care one way or another because they're ideologically driven. What we need to do is show the world what a constitutionally compliant government is capable of and how well we could all do under it, so that we can start having more people say, wow, this whole constitution thing, it really does work. Maybe we should leave it alone, and then take the people on our, and grow the number on our side, so the voters not only have teeth, but are willing to take a bite. The best way to have engagement is to, I think, not penalize people or show them how bad things can be, but let's show them how good things can be when they actually have a constitution and adhere to it.
I think something that goes along with what you're saying, Frank, and I think, Dow, you were going to hit the same target, is the best thing about, in this case, the Department of Government Efficiency is this has to be short. It is most effective and least corruptible by being brief, by being able to go in, target. Right now, many people may not realize this. In 2023, we spent $500 billion, and that's a number, $500 billion on programs and legislation that expired. We never stop spending money on these programs. No one's ever taken them off the books. No one's ever removed it from the budget. We spent half a billion dollars. Oh, excuse me, 500, half a trillion dollars on things that there is nothing to do. It's basically we're trying to buy a widget that doesn't exist, and we've wasted the money. That made poor people more poor. That made the middle class more poor, and it's the reason why we're spending that is then the government sees, oh, well, we can't spend the money on widget Y because it doesn't exist anymore. It's a slush fund. Let's use it for, I don't know, transition surgeries in the military, whatever it may be. I'm just pulling that out of out of the air, rather than seeing, is that constitutional? Is that something that the government can do? Or you'll see the ATF use the money to try and take away people's Second Amendment rights and punish them for having a pistol brace that was otherwise previously okay, or to use it for the lawsuits against people for having something that was previously lawful. And by having this organization short term, you can cut that waste, all those programs that don't need to exist because they expired, all the programs that are funding the overreach of the government. It's not enough time for someone to come in and try and corrupt them with money or distract them with other issues. They're in, they cut it, they're gone. And now people get to see, oh, we didn't need, we're going to, I think we go to 37 trillion for the national debt ceiling, but, oh, we only spent 36. We didn't go up 2. We're under the budget. And by the way, there's even more savings that could possibly happen, but let's ride this out for 4 years. Let's see where we go. And then we try it again. I think that's how it works.
So essentially,
probably, I was going to say, one of the most reputable organizations that we have out there that's doing this kind of thing is Citizens Against Government Waste organization. This is the group that every year comes out with their report of, they find all the little pet projects that government has spent money on. These are the guys who came out with the shrimp on the treadmill, how fast ketchup runs, and all the rest of the stuff. There are organizations that are out there doing it, but again, these are privately funded by donations and citizen groups that are just tired of getting fed up. Now, if you can find groups like this that could work hand in hand with a appointed organization like what Trump is trying to put out and say, hey, listen, this is what we've been researching for the last 30 years. What can we do about it? You might have something. But again, it's so hard to keep corruption out of anything organizational.
True.
We got to give Dow a shot because we cut him off like 3 times.
Sorry, buddy.
All right. Go ahead, Mike. I know we have to move on to the Senate race and the secret vote. But I was just going to say that Frank might be getting what he asked for last week.
Oh, with Department of Education?
Well, yeah, that and more. Like Elon Musk basically said that he's got his eyes on 99 different agencies amongst the 500 that nobody knows what they're for, that he's going to axe within the first 2 years. So...
it was funny. I was talking with my friend Keith over at 5150 Rifles. And he's got What, you
Are you,
leaving?
Johnson?
You okay? Okay.
Oh, that was abrupt. I was talking to my buddy Keith at 5150, and well, Mike's not far behind. I got to actually go in a few minutes soon, but he's got a design for something that's going to revolutionize everything, and we're putting on a big event out in Nevada soon. And we were talking about the best slogan we could use for his company at this point is "break the system." Because everybody's been just so entrenched in this idea that things are the way they are and that's the way they're going to be and everything. And my mind has always been break the system. Just break it. Just break it. If you want to forget about, just nuke it, blow it up, see what happens. Let's go for it. It can't be any worse than what they're doing to us now. But we shall see. Now, all right. Let's talk about this. What do you call it there?
The Senate Majority Leader and the secret vote. So, is it David Thune? It was David Thune, Rick Scott, and
Thune. Thune is going to be in charge of the Senate.
Oh, so they already held their vote.
Already done. Thune won. Rick Scott got bounced.
I think that's a mistake. But anyway.
I've talked to people about it, and Rick Scott would have been he's more controversial, had less support amongst the Senate. Thune has more support. He's better liked. He's more effective, and therefore probably the better choice.
Yeah, from a political standpoint.
Yes.
Right. But again, this is where I always try and draw the distinction between politics of that's their game and life, which is our game. I'm more concerned with how their politics affect our lives, where they're more concerned about how our lives affect their politics. They want to play the rules that they've written according to the way that benefits them the most, where we expect them to do things the way we want it done to benefit ours. Now, Thune is a wishy-washy, can bend to the whim of whoever's in power kind of thing. And I just think is, I don't know.
I think
not a good person. Scott, I don't like because of his red flag law bullshit.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of people who are trying to follow up on the red flag laws. I mean, that's one of my problems with Marco Rubio. He was trying to push that crap through, and I don't like that. But if you're looking at Rick Scott versus Thune, Thune is more, yes, it's political. I mean, that's the part that I deal with is the political. And Trump has to give something to the establishment to maintain support, because he can't do it all on his own. No matter how great a cabinet he puts together, he needs to have the Senate, he needs to have the House working with him to some degree so anything gets passed. Otherwise, everything just stalls and nothing goes anywhere. None of this actually happens. So politically, that's part of why I think he put Rubio in as Secretary of State. Part of why I think he didn't pick Thune, but why Thune got the position is that's giving something to the establishment so that they have a horse in the race. They don't feel cut out. And that gives Trump the momentum to get things done, like he seems to have a very clear plan to get done.
I know, but if you want to give something to the establishment, you know what I would be giving to the establishment? A photocopy of that map that shows all the red on it.
They don't care about that.
And I would frame that and say, this is what we're giving you because we have the mandate, not you. We have the mandate because as obviously the people have spoken that they don't want business as usual Republicans running the show because we've gotten nothing from them for the past 24 years.
Right.
That's what they...
And politically, the answer they'll give you back is, you have to accept it. Otherwise, you get Democrats, and Democrat are progressive, and they're going to destroy all of this. That's going to be their answer. It's again, we're talking the politics of it, which has nothing to do with the constitutionality of it. It has nothing to do with the benefit of it. It has nothing to do with actually representing the public, which is sad, and that's a problem. But you can understand why I'm saying that's why I look at it politically, because what is politically real, if we don't start making these changes that I think Trump is identifying very clearly between his cabinet, some of the things he said, obviously he seems to have been thinking about this for the entire time he hasn't been in office. If we don't make these changes and become more constitutional, if we don't move more to the center right and follow the Constitution and the amendments and get rid of a lot of the overreach, we will never get it. And if that means that if part of that step, that process to get there is to give a little bit of support politically to the establishment, and if we lose 10% of what he's trying to do, what seems to be what he's trying to do, if we lose 10% along the way and we get 90% of what he's doing, or even 70-30, we're far better off, and that gives us the impetus to get even further.
It's not the 10% of the agenda. It's not the 30% of the agenda that I'm worried about losing. It's the 10% or the 30% of the voters that sent him there with a mandate, because they're the ones who in the long run are calling the shots. And if the voters perceive that they are being shut out of the system by having the same friggin' clowns put in there, it's not going to matter who's at the top of the ticket, because Trump ain't running again. He's not going to be there. He's got to leave a legacy behind him. And the legacy that he leaves behind him has got to be one that says the people have been heard and the leadership acknowledged it, and we put the right people in charge. And having guys like Thune in there just to replace the turtle is not going to make the voters feel that good about it, because they're not going to see that this guy is doing anything.
And I understand what you're saying, but I don't agree with that entirely. I know why you're saying it, and I understand what you're saying, and yet I understand the politics of it, and it's not the same as Trump has the problem of he's got one term, and anything that he wants to get done, we're not getting another Trump after Trump. We're not. And we're not going to get the changes that we are seeing right now from the next guy. The next person is going to be more establishment than Trump is, no matter who. Everyone in politics right now, unless someone comes up the ranks that no one's ever heard of before, everyone that's potentially even considering that they should run in 2028, nowhere near where we're seeing right now. And that means that he has to get the most... He has to say, I need to get as much as possible. And that means deals, dealing with the House, the Senate, to get legislation, to repeal legislation, to change legislation. It requires you have to have deals. And that means we're going to lose something. I'd rather lose 70% of 30% of what Trump is trying to do, because that the establishment wants to say, hey, we got power still. Fantastic if we get 70% rather than get nothing, because we're not going to get this chance again. I mean, AOC, they're coming out with the news today that the left, they're so lost, they're now publicly, and this is coming from mainstream leftists, Democrats, are now saying that they want to push AOC forward, and she's going to be the poster child of the DNC going forward. And that chick, when she's not losing her mind on the left, is a complete sellout. This is so we need to get as much as we can, because they're going to try, and when they come back at us, they're going to try and take away as much as possible that has been done. This is so, I mean, do you understand what I'm saying about that? Does that make sense?
I understand it, but the thing of it is that this all hinges on the motivation that the people put behind their governance. So if we want to hold on to government being accountable and working for the people through the midterms and beyond, we as the people have to ride this government so hard that the government itself has to deliver for the people, or politics will never be the same again regardless. This is not your usual run-of-the-mill, this is how politics works. We're in one of what history calls the extreme pendulum swings. And whenever something happens in extreme pendulum swings, you either see a huge reformation of a society, or you see war. So if we don't ride this government all the way through to deliver effectively on their promises, the other end of this is going to be another massive pendulum shift that we're going to see, and it's probably going to end in war.
I would hope not.
We would hope not, but I'm just saying, historically, based on what they call the pendulum swing, when it goes, normally your swing is is usually in the center, and it's very small. We're not in that point right now. The swings have been huge. The swing in 2020 was way to the left. Now we have a swing 2024 way to the right, and that it eventually will settle back in the center, and that's where you're going to see history, like political culture, resume its march. But if we don't want that type of history to occur, because that's how we got to where we are, then we have to make sure that the people, in the effort to ensure security of their own governance, rides this administration to deliver effectively everything that they've promised, and keep on them from now into perpetuity until the people decide that America is no longer worth fighting for.
I get it. I mean, I get it, but
I can just tell you this particular swing in the momentum has got Trump stamped all over it.
Oh yeah.
And for the Senate to come in and decide that they're going to do some wishy-washy bullshit after the retention and expansion of power was brought to them via the courtesy of the Trump supporting public, is not going to bode well for the Republicans in the future. If they put somebody in there who's a deal maker based on the political expediency of all the crap that goes on just behind the scenes and not listening to the will of the voters,
yeah,
they are going to lose more than they could ever gain. But then again, these are also the people who will cut every deal they can right now to ensure that they all have some cushy job after their tenure is expired, and rather than worrying about the constituency right now.
Right. Golden parachutes for everybody. That's their friends.
Like I said, these people don't care about the public. They don't care about the voters. They don't care about anything. You may have an administration that does, and maybe it would be nice to see as much getting done without, use the power. Trump has the mandate. He has the bully pulpit. If he can start painting the Republicans as his own obstructionists and start making the people realize that it's the Republicans who are just as, accountable for everything that's wrong with this country as the Democrats have been, then you might get something. You might get people getting pushed out of positions.
Right.
But guys like Thune, they know. Look, I don't like any of the people that they put up for leadership.
I would have preferred to see Rand Paul, but that will never happen.
No,
I mean, it would have been nicer to have somebody who, understood the people in that position.
Right.
But
I mean, here's the thing:
go with the worst of the three.
I don't know. Again, who was the third person? I can't remember.
It doesn't matter. It wasn't.
No, the third person was the worst choice.
Yeah, but that's why.
But I can't remember who they were.
It wasn't really anyone worth considering. It was really going to be Cornyn. You're thinking. But here's the thing. I understand exactly what you guys are talking about, but we are there's so much that is happening. It's a lot to absorb. And I just don't, given even establishment doesn't care about the consequences, because as long as the establishment exists, they will eventually regain whatever power or beliefs of power that they have, which is one of the reasons why we see now that Tulsi Gabbard has been named director of the National Intelligence, the NIH.
Yep.
No,
the National
Intelligence. National Intelligence. So she's now the director of national intelligence. That is a threat to the establishment, just like Matt Gaetz is a threat to the establishment, like the Department of Government Efficiency is a threat. And adding into that, now we have RFK. He's the one wild card, which we haven't spoken about. He's a wild card. RFK and his MAHA, which is Make America Healthy Again, movement, which is a strong movement. It has a lot of support with third parties, has a lot of support with the Libertarian Party as well. A lot of even Democrats and some Republicans are also very much behind this idea. We've heard that Trump said he's going to let him run with this, that he's going to get that. The question is he going to get the HHS, Secretary of HHS? Is that going to go to RFK? Is that not? Because if he does that, that means that, it's going to be what you're talking about, Frank. He's going to be throwing the establishment away. He's going to throw them down a well. And they got Thune. That's enough for them to be happy. And it doesn't matter because everyone else, if he's got RFK, he already got Tulsi Gabbard in there. We've seen all the other picks. It means he's going whole hog. And we will see the change you're talking about.
Yeah.
If he doesn't, then he's going to play the political game and will lose 30% of everything that's proposed. Go ahead.
I know the one name I don't see on here on this Reuters list is RFK. I'm wondering if Trump is saving his appointment for last, if he's going to appoint him to like director of NIH or something.
I don't know. Jan was reporting just a few minutes ago, and she says she saw on X.
Okay.
She saw on X that he is going to be getting the HHS secretary position.
Remind me what is that?
Services.
Oh, okay.
Now, I was just searching on X. I didn't find that. I was just searching on Google, but Google is a monopoly, and Google has an algorithm that does not want to share this kind of information. So I couldn't find it on Google. I couldn't find it on X, but I know it is something that has been talked about. It is something that has been speculated. But I think that's like the cherry on top of everything else. That's giving something to the libertarians and the third parties and justifying and validating them. That changes the election in 2028 because the momentum shifts entirely. It brings in more voices into the election going forward. I think there's a lot of changes that happens. Hey, Mike, you're back.
Yeah, I had to go take care of some stuff.
Okay. Everything all right?
Yeah.
Well, now that Mr. Marshall is back, thank you so much for coming in. Michael is my salvation for the evening because I have to go put my foot on ice. Climbing up the stairs to the second floor for the office on one foot is not fun. I keep reaching down and saying, is my foot still there?
That's why you got to slide on your butt.
Well, we were in the process of removing the carpeting from our stairs.
Oh,
because we have a carpet runner that runs up the middle of the stairs, and I've only managed to get halfway done with it. So the top 8 treads are oak, the bottom 8 treads are carpet, and as you can imagine, sliding down one medium and hitting the other is going to be a change of speed and comfort that I'm not looking forward to. So
get better, Frank.
Maybe one day. All right, guys, listen, I'm going to get out of here. Catch you guys.
Get you a Tesla leg.
What's that?
We'll get you a Tesla leg. It could replace your busted ankle, and you could use Neuralink to be able to move it.
No, I just think once Lori and I put in an addition on the house on the first floor, my office will be relegated back there. All right.
Good idea.
All right, guys. Love you guys. See you guys next week. We'll talk
Love you
soon.
too,
As
Frank.
always, be safe, shoot straight, and everybody be well. Audience, thank you so much. Catch you guys next week.
All right.
Have a good night.
So I don't know if you've been hearing what we've been talking about some of the other positions. So we were talking a little bit about Thune. We were talking a little bit about Tulsi Gabbard. We're kind of right now talking a little bit about RFK Jr., the potential of him being in charge of HHS, which is Health Human Services, and how that could change the way the 2028 election goes, because you could see that would elevate voices in the Libertarian Party. The third parties get validation. Things like MAHA, which is Make America Healthy Again, that gets validation. It changes the conversation. Democrats don't get to say they're the party of people, of healthcare. They're no longer just the only ones that own that argument. So it changes that entirely. And I think I've talked to a couple of people about this, libertarians, my friend Larry Sharp in particular. I think that we will see RFK getting that position, pushing forward on his MAHA position. Everyone else I'm talking to on the left and in third parties are saying they don't think so, because they think he's going to get blocked or it's not going to get through because of constitutionality. What do you think, Mike?
No, the only thing constitutionality wise on this is there's no constitutional authority for health and human service offices.
It's mostly the responsibility of the people, right?
What's that?
The Health and Human Services actually is mostly the responsibility of the people at local levels. It's not meant to be a federal position.
Right.
Right.
Okay. The federal government has no authority to make sure that you're healthy.
Didn't they make that department based on the clause of general welfare?
They try to make it under that guise, but everybody misdefines what general welfare is.
Right.
Okay.
Basically, is being left alone.
Well, actually, what is, when we hear general welfare, and they always like to say, well, it's constitutional because it's general welfare. You're the constitutionalist, Mike. What was the meaning of that then and now?
General welfare was for the good of the nation as a whole. Okay. If you have a Department of Health and Human Services, right, that by its very nature will cater to people that are less healthy than others. So right there means it's no longer general welfare. It means it is specified welfare because it is specified towards the people that are less healthy. Okay, general welfare is something that impacts everybody equally. Okay, it is universal, it is uniform across the board. It doesn't have a requirement of somebody that is more healthy or somebody that's less healthy, somebody that is richer, somebody that is poor. There is no criterion for general welfare. If there is a criterion that needs to be entered in order for something to be justified, then it is no longer a general welfare.
So would you say, for example, general welfare would fall under national security? Because it's good for the nation.
Security across the board. It's
right.
That is part. Actually, national security is common defense. It's not necessarily general welfare. It's common defense.
Okay.
Okay, and that is national security. General welfare would be, let's see. Okay, general welfare.
National debt.
Yeah, actually, reducing the national, getting rid of the national debt would be a general welfare item.
Mm-hmm.
Because that would impact the entire nation as a whole.
Right.
General welfare is like when we negotiate treaties with other countries.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. When we're negotiating those treaties, it needs to impact everyone in the United States the same.
Right.
Okay. One thing that isn't general welfare is disaster relief. Okay. That is a specified welfare. Okay. If we want to do disaster relief, that's great. Let the states do that independently of the federal government.
Or
So let's
individuals.
say Louisiana,
Mm-hmm.
okay, during Katrina. Louisiana gets hammered by a hurricane again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, or Mississippi or wherever, right? Gets hammered by a hurricane. The other states are more than welcome to send resources, troops,
Whatever.
people, whatever,
Support. Yeah.
down there to support that other. Okay, that doesn't have to come from the federal government. And by rights, it should not come from the federal government for the simple reason that it now puts Louisiana beholding to the federal government.
Right.
Okay, and that's not what's supposed to happen. Okay, anytime that the federal government does something for a specified group, whether it's a state, a class of people, whatever, once it does something for a specified group, then that group becomes beholding to the federal government. And that is the exact opposite of what the founders intended.
Right.
Okay. The founders wanted the federal government to be beholding to the people,
Right.
to the
As
states.
a whole. Yep.
Okay. And the only way that you can actually get it so that the federal government isn't where groups and entities aren't beholding to the federal government is when they provide for the general welfare or the welfare of everyone.
Right.
Okay. So when they pass a law, it has to be effective on every level. Okay. And technically, there are very specified items in Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution,
right,
that allow for the federal government to pass laws that actually have penalties involved, that are actual criminal in nature. But those are specifically defined. The federal government actually has very little criminal authority,
right.
far less than what it currently wields.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that is because of the nature. The federal government wasn't supposed to be a police over the nation.
Right. It was supposed to be an outward facing
Yes.
entity. Yeah.
Okay. And that's why. And in general welfare, if you actually look into it and think about it, general welfare, there are very, very, very few things that would be encompassed under general welfare.
So, like anything, it's been reinterpreted and misinterpreted. Yeah. Or misrepresented and reinterpreted.
Abused and overreach.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And they also took welfare out of context.
Right.
Okay. They believe welfare is like the welfare checks people get. That's not what welfare is. Okay. Welfare means for the good of.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay. It doesn't mean that you ensure that people can survive.
Right.
Social Security, completely unconstitutional if you look at it under the true definition of general welfare.
Right.
Okay. The federal government isn't supposed to ensure that you have enough money to retire, regardless whether to tax and put it aside or whatever. That is
Correct.
not an obligation of the federal government. Okay. That's on you. That is an individual responsibility. And we try to twist this stuff, think that the federal government needs to step in. Food stamps, Medicare, Medicaid, all these other programs that have been classified as for the general welfare are not, because they have specific criteria that you must meet in order to be able to even apply for or even benefit from. And that is not the general welfare. And they try to say, well, if we do that for this certain group of people, then that's good for the whole nation. No, it's not. Because the whole nation has to pay in order to make that group better. And that's not the general welfare.
Sorry, I'm just leaving a quick message here because we are almost at
yeah, we're getting real
300
close.
views, almost at 300 views now.
Nice.
So that's incredible, folks. We've broken through a record for the program. I want to thank and appreciate each and every one of you, but don't think it's over. Come on, you can a couple more shares, a couple more likes. We can get to 300 live views. We would appreciate it.
Wait just a second.
Yep. And we appreciate that this is a big issue. Obviously, the direction of our country, how it's going to move forward, what's going to change. This is something we all need to be involved in. And that's what this channel is for. That's why we're here. And we hope that you're enjoying hearing our voices and our different opinions and our reasons. And more importantly, that you hold your local politician accountable to make sure that if you're hearing what we're saying and say, you know what? Yeah, we do want a more constitutional America. We want to have a smaller budget, a smaller America. You know what? You got to be there with us. That means
you want to get,
go ahead.
If you want to get rid of the deficit, start holding the government accountable to the Constitution. Hold it within its constitutional limits. You want a balanced budget? Hold Congress and the government to its constitutional limits. Okay, it is literally that simple, folks. But the only one I had up there earlier that CT had said that the only problem with the Constitution is it has no teeth.
Right.
No, the Constitution has plenty of teeth.
Mm-hmm.
It starts off in the first 4 words or 3 words. We the people.
Yeah, we're the teeth.
We are the teeth of the Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
But when we don't participate, when we don't act, when we don't vote, when we don't get involved ourselves, when we don't communicate with our representatives, then yeah, the Constitution has 0 teeth. Okay? We are literally allowing the government to do whatever it wants because we refuse to hold them accountable.
And in essence, it used to be that if you wanted to hold the government or your representatives accountable, you would go to their offices or wherever they do business, and you would park in front of them and basically tell them, you either do as we say, or we're going to vote you right out.
Now,
Or
and
tar
that
and feather
is
them.
extremely hard to do now
Right.
because our representatives in Congress represent so many people
Mm-hmm.
that they have no choice but to cater to special interests,
Right.
because the special interests have the backing of a group of people, a large enough group of people, or a large segment of people, that they can have that impact.
Right.
So when we first started this up, these shows, I talked about the first 12 amendments of the Constitution that were actually sent to the states.
Right.
Okay. And one of them was about the amount of representation there was to be in Congress. That is something that is severely lacking, is the number of representatives in Congress has been set at 530 or 438 since 1929.
When it should have been
You
increasing.
mean the House? You mean the House?
Yes, the House of
438.
Representatives.
Not counting Senate. Okay. I
Okay.
know that. I know Robert Reich has been talking about this recently, and he just literally just after the election, he just started coming out with a discussion about the 14th Amendment, talking about trying to increase the number of representatives. I know you support that as well. He's talking about trying to double the number of representatives in Congress. I believe, Mike, you've said in the past, if I remember correctly, we should be closer to about 1,200.
No, closer to 6,000.
6,000. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Oh yeah, you're going all the way down. And for people who wonder how do you get these numbers? Right now, every representative is in charge of or answers to 720,000 people.
At least.
I believe that's the cutoff number right now.
No, there's
Population is
some that
growing.
are almost 1 million. There are some representatives that represent almost 1 million people.
Really? I thought every district was 720.
No.
Okay, maybe this is just New York. Okay. I learned too, folks. So that is huge. Now, some are saying, I know Robert Reich is saying, well, let's bring it down to about 525,000 people, one representative for every 525,000 people. I know you've said an even lower number, like closer to 30,000 to 50,000, Mike, in the past.
Yes. The way the original First Amendment, was written, and this is, people think that the original First Amendment was the right to free speech, freedom of religion, etc. No, that was not the actual First Amendment that was sent to the states. The actual First Amendment that was sent to the state was called the Article the First, and it was supposed to be the First Amendment of the Constitution. Was about representation, and it was to set a specified number of people for each representative. And it was to start off for every 30,000 people, a representative would be added to the House of Representatives.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the House of Representatives reached 100 people, that would increase to every 40,000. When it hit 200 people, it would increase to, or 200 representatives, it would increase to every 50,000 people, as noted by the census. Okay. If we carry that out, that would work out to over 6,000 representatives if we stopped at that 50,000.
Right.
If we continued that same track, so started off with 30,000 till we reached 100 members in the House. And then it went to 20,000, or went to 40,000 when we reached 200, 50,000 when we reached at 200. And then so it'd be, so for every 100 members in Congress, it would go up another 10,000 people that would be represented.
Right.
That gets us down to a more manageable number, but it's still a pretty astronomical number as far as number of representatives and being able to get things actually accomplished.
Right.
So a better method would be to take the state with the absolute lowest population, divide that amount in half. And instead of having a single representative per state, have a minimum of 2 representatives per state. And then every time we reach that half mark, you add 1 more representative. But it's done automatically, and it's not done as a prorated means like what we're currently doing.
That allows for redistricting.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, and I've had this argument with a couple of people who are in favor of the 14th Amendment repeal. It's essentially a repeal of the 14th Amendment or rewriting the 14th Amendment, its parameters.
Or revision. Yeah.
Revision. Yeah. And Reich is putting out his suggestion, which is not like yours, Mike. So he's actually going with the proportion. And he's doing that, and this is the catch-22 of it. He's doing it because it would effectively nullify the Electoral College. It would effectively nullify Congress, the House, because LA, New York City, Chicago, Boston, Detroit, Baltimore, you get those, you don't need anything else in the country. They would have so many votes. As an example, let's say it's 1 representative for every 500,000. New York City has 8 million people. So that means that you're looking at 2 per, that's going to be 16 representatives. No, it's more. It's more than 16 representatives just for the city, not the state. That's just the city. And then each city, and we have several cities that are at 1 million, or actually more than 1 million each. New York State would be massively powerful. We're looking at California, massive. You've got LA, you've got San Diego, you've got San Francisco, Chicago. Like I said, you have the top 10 cities, which are all controlled by Democrats. You wouldn't be able to have, that would be enough of a coalition that Montana, Rhode Island, I don't know, Maine, Kansas, Iowa, the middle of America ceases to exist. They would have no power. You couple that, the Democrats would have so much power on this basis that they would be the only ones in control. So that's why I don't like what Robert Reich has been saying. I don't like that direction. And I think Trump is definitely not going in that direction.
No.
But I think your point makes more sense. I just am afraid that, like what Reich is proposing, without explaining it to people, he had like a 1-minute sum up of this. So it sounds really good if you don't actually do like I just did and do the math and suddenly realize, yeah, 1 city is worth more than 3 states.
Right.
That's completely unbalanced. And that's my fear. And I don't think Trump's going to go down that direction. But I think if he is making so many changes, and we're seeing that in the cabinet, and he's looking to literally rewrite our government structure, our infrastructure of our government, I think he may try and address this. How do we make sure it's not going to be corruptible, or at least harder to corrupt than what we have now?
Well, one of the ways that you actually make it so, this is where having that astronomical number of 6,000 works. Because it's a hell of a lot harder to corrupt 6,000 people than it is to corrupt 400.
Yeah, but that's unwieldy, and I don't think you can get anything accomplished with 6,000 people all screaming for their own idea.
But here's the other
we
thing.
need a number that's reasonable.
Well, here's the other thing on that. Okay. Our federal government was supposed to be slow to act.
Yeah.
Okay. It was supposed to be the legislative process was intended to be slow. by its design, by its nature.
Well, it
Okay.
had to be.
Putting 6,000 people in there enhances that.
I think that 6,000 people actually, you screw the soup. The soup is spoiled because you can't get anything done. That's worse than herding cats. I think there's a number that's somewhere between the 438 in the
that's
House.
kind of where I'm getting at with doing the state with the lowest population, dividing that in half, giving them at least 2 representatives.
So
and
what's
then
that
every
number?
time that half population mark gets reached, that's when you add another representative. Right now, they prorate it based upon some formula, and it's kind of a convoluted formula to figure out
Like most
how the
formulas.
representatives are done. Okay, in order to meet that 438 mark. Okay.
Yeah.
And it is disproportionate in some areas, and it is advantageous to some states, and it's a disadvantage to other states. We need to go back to literally a population-based dichotomy, and we have to have a set number, not a proportional number or anything like that, a set number of people in order to determine the number of representatives. And that means every census, the number of representatives in the House of Representatives is actually going to change. And more than likely, it's going to increase by some amount.
Yeah.
If the population keeps moving up, which it's not. Actually, we're probably going to be looking at in the next 10, 20 years, population is actually going to start decreasing because the United States is one of the leading first world nations, but all first world nations are having a decrease in their population. The U.S. is one of the leaders, of that. I think Japan is ahead of us, and then it's us. We're either number 2 or 3 in terms of birth rate, which means population is going to start decreasing.
Right.
But I understand your point. I mean, what's the number generally work out to? I mean, what's
okay? So right now, Wyoming has a population of 580,000 people.
Right.
Okay, that is the least populated state in the United States. So if we took that number, divided it in half, so that'd be what, 290,000 people?
So you want to round it up to 300,000?
No, go 290.
Well, no, I'm talking about our math right now. It's easy to do 300.
Okay, so let's say 300,000. So for every 300,000 people, there would be another representative added to the roster. Okay, so Wyoming would start off with 2 representatives.
Right.
Okay. When you hit, so at 600,000, you have 2 representatives. When you hit 900,000, you would now have 3 representatives. When you hit 1,200,000 or 1.2 million, you have 4 representatives, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So every 300,000, you would have another representative.
Right.
That would mean New York. I'm doing the math on that. In New York City alone, that'd be 27 representatives just for New York City.
Yeah.
And that kind of hits my problem again. Because now, doesn't that mean, so Wyoming has 2, New York City has 27. It's 10 times more. LA, again, go to the major cities. Doesn't that make it a lock for Democrats again?
No, not necessarily, because you still have very large population areas that aren't as densely populated that would counter that.
Statewide, you mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Statewide, nationally, even.
Okay. I don't know.
Okay. But also by reducing the number of representatives, number of people that each representative represents,
You
you
get
now
the
get a better feel for, okay, we have, say, in New York City, right?
right.
You can now have more Republican representatives potentially because there's a smaller block that could actually vote Republican.
Okay. Yeah. 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 I can see that. It's
Because there are pockets in various areas. And also, when
true.
you start increasing the total number of representatives, numbers of districts, it starts to make it so it's very hard to gerrymander districts.
True. Yeah. 26 districts just in New York City alone. That chops it up. I mean, it's about 150% increase in New York City.
So gerrymandering starts becoming where it's no longer a factor. Okay, it doesn't mean that it can't happen. It means it's extremely difficult for it to happen without making it so that you end up providing as many pure Republican districts as you do pure Democrat districts.
It's interesting. I don't know. Now, here's the thing. Do we think, given that we're seeing this idea would probably fall under the purview of the vice president would have to push this for Congress. Obviously the president, but so you'd have Trump pushing it. It would have to also be pushed by Vance because he'd be the liaison to the Senate.
Right.
And the Speaker of the House.
We'd need the Speaker of the House, and which is going to be Mike Johnson. And we need who else? Is there another cabinet position that would be needed to push that?
No, not really. But the easiest way, it'd require more people, but the easiest way to do it is via the states.
And do it as another amendment.
Okay.
As an amendment to overwrite the 14th Amendment?
Right. Well, the 14th Amendment really doesn't say anything about what the 14th Amendment's representatives shall be apportioned among the several states according to their respective numbers, counting the whole number of persons in each state. Okay. There is no proportion. So it wouldn't overwrite the 14th Amendment. It would actually add to the 14th Amendment.
Okay.
As a clarifier?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. It would actually set an actual amount. Okay. Given some formula as to determining the total number of representatives. Where we got the 438, give me just a second here. Okay. Or 435, I'm sorry. Okay. So the House of Representatives in 1929, there was a law, the 1929 Permanent Apportionment Act was when the House was capped at 435 seats. Okay. There is nothing that says that act cannot be changed. But since 1929, we have pretty much stuck at 435. There were a couple sessions where there were more when Hawaii and Alaska were added to the nation. But other than that, it's been 435 seats. Okay. And then that first session, when those states were added to the United States, we had a couple more representatives, but the following cycle, the following census, it backed off and went back down to the actual apportionment formula that they use.
So let me ask this: how likely of the things that we know, and this is a question for you, this is a question for the chat. Come on, we can get 7 more people watching. 7 more people watching. Share it. 7 more people. We break 300. But separate of that, given that we know there's Maha, we can see that Matt Gaetz is probably going to be going in to try and enforce the laws, ending sanctuary cities, most likely. I think that's going to be one of his big things. I think we're going to see the Department of Government Efficiency, that's Musk and Ramaswamy. They're probably going to be shrinking the government, possibly cutting back massively on, say, the Department of Education. I think that's going to be one of their big targets. He said 93 different departments. We'll see. I did mention Maha with RFK Jr. Knowing that those are some of the top issues, do we think increasing the size of the House of Representatives, will that be a big or even at all an issue that Trump targets? He's only got 4 years. Realistically, he's got 2 years to make all the moves he can. Do you think he does it?
I don't think Trump will address it.
It hasn't been addressed so far. I don't even think it's on the radar compared to some of the other things that have been already mentioned.
Okay. And actually, I don't think it's on the radar really for anybody to address it. Like you said, Robert Reich has had a little teaser about it, but that's more along the lines to get rid of the Electoral College than it is anything else.
Yeah.
Because he's a huge proponent of getting rid of the Electoral College, and the left desperately wants to get rid of the Electoral College. I personally would like to see our states do more like what Maine and Nebraska does and split their electoral votes based upon how districts vote, how their congressional districts vote. And then you give the 2 electoral votes that you get for the Senate, you let them go towards popular vote. But as far as the other electoral votes, ones that match the number of representatives, those tie to their congressional district.
Yeah.
And however their congressional district votes is how that electoral vote is cast. And we were going to get into that, and we'll have to do this another time. We've got a lot of things that we're going to be discussing over the next few weeks with the new administration. But I am going to have a segment on different way on how the votes are done for the House, the Senate, and the president, and how that is constitutionally aligned. So I will be doing talks on that here in the not too distant future. But one of the things is there is no requirement for the citizens of the United States to vote for the president in the Constitution.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
we were talking about that last week.
Right.
When we were talking about the results, and people can check that out.
Okay. There is actually no requirement. The only requirement is that there is an electoral group sent by the state that is the number of the representatives in both the House and the Senate. That's the only requirement. That can be established by the state legislature. Hell, the governor of the state could actually appoint those electors.
Mm-hmm.
there is no requirement that the citizens choose the electors. It is tradition, and it's been tradition since day one, under the Constitution, that the people vote for the elector. But many states, and this is not something that's been common all the way along, there was a couple states in the beginning that lumped all their electoral votes together, based upon popular vote.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of states that also split the electors based upon how the congressional districts voted. The only ones that still have that are, like I said, Maine and Nebraska.
No.
Yeah, all the other states went to an all or nothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't know. It would be interesting. So I myself don't think Trump's going to address this at all. I think Robert Reich isn't going to get any traction on this.
No.
I think that most pundits are going to see now. People like Joy Behar,
Congress has no incentive to change the number of representatives.
No, I think the reason why we're hearing it from Robert Reich, and we're going to start hearing it from the left as we get closer to the inauguration, is because Democrats, if they go with just lowering the number and increasing the number of representatives, they're going to win because of the number of cities. And Democrats are going to do that because this is the way they get the power back. Because I think they realize what they have been doing, which is a lot of deception, a lot of emotion, a lot of manipulation, will not continue to work.
Yeah.
So but I don't think that we're going to see, I don't think that goes anywhere. And I don't think Trump addresses it going forward. I think he's going to be far too focused on the economy. I think he's going to be far too focused on shrinking the deficit, which is every year. That's the deficit, and the national debt, which is the total of every year, that debt altogether. I think he's going to be far too focused on that. I think he has his hands full in terms of the international policy, Russia being the first one to tackle because of the Ukraine, because of the commitments that we saw that Biden has made for the next decade, if not next 50 years.
Russia's already capitulating some.
They all are. We're seeing they're all starting to back down because they don't want to deal with the Trump.
Mm-hmm.
But there's still going to be more conversation that needs to happen.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
So I think he's going to be, and again, I'm talking in the first 2 years before the midterms, he's going to be burdened with getting the peace deal for Russia, Ukraine in place. He's going to have to get the hostages back from Hamas, get Iran to back the hell down and increase the sanctions, put all the sanctions back on Iran, take sanctions off of Russia, add sanctions to Iran massively to curtail some of the terrorism. He's got to purge this nation. And this is what Tom Homan, who is appointed now to deal with he's going to be the border czar, got to get rid of a lot of illegal aliens. And I know some people will be all upset about that, but we had a 3,400% increase in the number of known and suspected terrorists in America in the last 3.5 years. We've got to purge that. We have to clean that up and close the border. We have to. Otherwise, that will cost people's lives. It is a threat to national security. So that's going to take them up. I mean, just those three things, the economy, dealing with the two big international, well, China's also, he's got to do something with China. So the three big international concerns and the national security in terms of immigration, illegal immigration, not legal, illegal immigration. I don't think he has time to do anything else.
No, he doesn't. Okay. Especially if it's limited to just 2 years. Even in 4 years, he's going to have his hands full with just that and getting this nation turned around economically and internationally, even domestically. Okay.
2 more people. 2 more. We're at 298. 298 live. 2 more people. Come on. Anyway, go on.
We do
Sorry,
have
we're
to
so close.
start limiting our government. And that's where I see this Office of Efficiency doing some good. But I still don't think it's going to be enough. And you are right that it has to be a very short-lived position. We do need some type of we need some type of group that has authority, that's a watchdog group that keep, and mind you, it's supposed to be we the people.
Right.
We are the watchdog group, but we failed at our mission to keep our government constitutionally accountable. And the fact is too many people don't care about the Constitution, and they don't understand that the Constitution is unbiased. Okay, it doesn't care if it's Republican or Democrat.
Right.
It cares about what the government is limited to. And if we abide by the Constitution, regardless of which party you're in, it actually protects you, because it doesn't allow the other party to usurp power away from you. Okay. And what we've got now going on now is we've got a tit for tat type of deal where one party gets outside of the Constitution, and then the other party uses that expansion of power against the party that just expanded that power.
Right. Yeah, you never see it where
in the end, the people are the ones that are losing.
You never see it where, they accuse each other of expanding governmental power and that they're going to stop them from using it, but you never see them actually repeal anything and go back to a more limited government. It never seems to happen that way. And that's one of the reasons why they keep talking about the public mandate, is that we're sick of the expansion as a whole, as a nation. That's why we saw the reaction in the voting this year compared to all the others. And it's why we have to encourage people to,
and going forward,
not let up on the gas.
From this election, we, meaning the Liberty First Foundation and other organizations like us, need to take that mandate that was given by the people and start teaching the people the true limits of what the government is confined to.
Right. I mean, ultimately, you want to have the people reacquire the power to limit their own government through defunding. Money, capital is the one thing that the people can wield, and we wield it every day based on products that we buy, businesses that we support or don't support. Your dollar, your capital that you spend is your vote that you cast at the ballot box every day. Why can you not do that with your own government and its spending? You should be able to. You were able to.
That's just it. Okay. And Congress, in its oh so infinite wisdom, years ago, took away one of our most effective means of redress.
Yep.
Okay. When they started doing automatic deductions of taxes out of payrolls.
Yep.
Okay. And that did a couple of things to us, and we need to start wrapping this up. We're already half an hour over a half an hour over.
Yeah. Just sending you that message.
But we do need to start wrapping this up. But I just want to go over this real quick. When Congress instituted automatic deductions of taxes out of people's paychecks, it did a couple of different things. Number one, it made people less aware of the amount of taxes that they are paying each year to the federal government. Okay, because you never see that money. It's not like at the end of the year when you filed your taxes and you had to write this astronomical check out to the federal government to pay your taxes, and you start wondering, why the hell am I paying all this?
Yeah.
Okay, now you never see it. Now it's broken up over, if you're paid every week, over 52 weeks. So it doesn't look like a whole hell of a lot. Okay. That's something, one of the things that we need to be able to get rid of. Okay. And people need to be aware of the actual amount that they pay into the federal government each year.
Yeah.
Everybody now looks at it as they're getting free money when they get their tax refund each year.
No,
you're not getting free money. You're getting back money that you never should have paid in the first place.
Yep. And sometimes if you're not one that pays taxes because you're under a certain threshold, you're actually receiving money that someone else paid into, or you're receiving the interest that was made on the money that people paid in on the taxes, and that money was never yours to begin with.
Okay, so that's one of the things. Yeah. Okay, and then other thing that we need that we are no longer allowed is the ability to stop paying taxes when we feel the government is stepping outside of its powers.
Yeah.
Okay, we have no means. If you are drawing a paycheck, you really don't have an effective means to say, no, I'm not paying it.
Yep.
Okay, sure, you can put in another W-2 and put on there that you have 75 dependents. But in effect, that really doesn't do anything for you.
No. And still, if you do something like that, the IRS will still audit you, and then you wind up going to jail.
But not only that, then they can get you for fraud.
Right. It becomes a criminal act.
Yeah. Okay. Defrauding the government at that point.
Right. Where if you were to actually refuse, then you actually have grounds of a defense saying that the government is using your money illegally or unlawfully. And you can actually create a defense and, well, they are spending money for this, which is unconstitutional. They are spending money for this, which is unconstitutional. Right. So you actually have a legitimate defense if you can actually refuse to pay your taxes. But right now, you have no lawful means of doing that if you draw a paycheck from an employer.
Right. Yep.
True. It will be interesting to see if Trump is going to address those things. I don't think so. No. Again, I don't think he has the time.
No.
No, the closest thing that he's come
touches on it by taking away taxation of tips
and overtime.
Mm-hmm.
Well, taxation of tips, overtime, and
not addressing the real issue.
Yeah, but I think he wants to cut. Like he's going to reauthorize the tax cuts that he put forth in the first place,
which were helpful. Yeah,
in 2017, and we still have them. He's going to reauthorize that so that the tax rates don't go up, which Harris would have let happen. Mm-hmm. So I think he's going to do that, and possibly he's going to bring the rates down even lower, which I think would be very helpful. I think he wants to do an audit of the Fed. I don't think he can get that done. Again, my fear is he's got 2 years, then there's the midterms, and Democrats are going to demonize him. They're going to hate him. And some of these things take time. Even if he does all of the things we think he should to make the changes, and they're all positive, they're not going to be positive next week. As an example, Russia, if in January, Russia suddenly says, we've got the ceasefire. We not only did get the ceasefire, but they have an agreement with Ukraine. All fighting stops. Ukraine can go in the spring, start shipping out fertilizer around the world, start planting all of their crops. None of the bombs dropped on any of the farms. Let's assume all of those things are perfect. And that means we can put in the crops and have crops to the same level as 2019, reversing the 30% food deficit in the world that exists right now that no one likes talking about, which would lower the cost of food globally. It would help feed and stabilize much of Africa, a lot of Southeast Asia, and part of South America, and lower prices here in the United States as well. Let's say all of that were to happen. You're not going to see that until 2026.
Yeah, minimum.
Because you
At
have
the
to,
earliest.
at the absolute earliest, it would be 2020. That's assuming January, everything I just said starts to go into place. You will not see that until 2026 because you got to grow the food. You got to ship, you got to grow the food, collect the food, ship the food. That takes a year. You're not seeing it until 2026. And throughout that entire time, Trump's going to be demonized and told that he's not doing anything. It's not effective. And see, it didn't work. You guys wasted your vote. You're just too dumb to understand that you wasted your vote. No, it takes time. So that's why I say 2020 is the drop dead date. They're going to try and make people believe that it didn't work. Not that it didn't work yet, but that it didn't work. And then try and take power again. That's the scary part.
Yeah, it's okay to have enthusiasm, but we have to have the expectation that nothing is going to happen overnight.
Yeah.
And we need to remind ourselves of that. There's going to be at least a year of pain that we're going to have to muddle through. And we can be joyful in the fact that we took the first step, but this is just the first step. And it can't end in 4 years. It can't end in 2 years. We have to, like I was saying earlier, we have to ride this thing right to the end in order to see anything good. Yeah. Well, and it's going to be up to groups like ours to educate the people, like Mike is saying, about the Constitution, how it works, how the government's supposed to be eliminated, how to make it successful with our participation and get people back into the idea of being part of a culture that's driven by civic national populism. It's okay to be American. It's okay to be wanting America to be great. In fact, I want Poland to be great. I want Russia to be great. I want Ukraine to be great. As long as every person in those countries backs their government and ultimately desires liberty and freedom for themselves, how they see fit to achieve it. That's fine. There is nothing wrong with that sort of nationalism. Where it becomes an issue is when nationalism turns into jingoism. And jingoism is where things become authoritarian and you lose freedoms because your national identity is usurped, subverted, and wielded like a weapon and forced upon the populace.
No.
So that's the difference. It's okay to be nationalistic. It's okay to want the best for your country and its people. And if you don't want the best for the country and its people as a whole, then you shouldn't be here. This is not your country then.
No.
These people.
Actually, I'm going to. This country was built to protect individual rights.
Correct.
Okay. It was the individual. And I don't care how narcissistic, for lack of a better word, or self-centered you are. that should be ultimately what we are looking to do, is to protect the rights of the individual. And people that want their rights protected the most are the ones that are the most self-centered, honestly.
Right, but what I'm saying is that if they can be self-centered and still identify as being Americans, and they like the fact that the country of America caters to them protecting their own rights. But what you have right now is a bunch of people that live here that don't really claim themselves to be Americans. They're not
Right.
interested in protecting everyone's individual rights. Their only interest is in creating personal wealth and subjugating their neighbor. And that's not American.
Well,
But they'll say they're patriots.
That's actually, you just hit the heart of it. Okay. They aren't for protecting individual rights. They're for the subjugation of individuals.
Right.
Okay. As long as it's under their terms.
Right. And those are the people that that claim to hate what America stands for. This is not their country.
Mm-hmm.
If that's what they want, then they shouldn't be here, because that's not what America is for. That's my opinion.
Mm-hmm. And even with this, okay, if we look at the protection of individual rights and we all become self-centered, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
Ultimately, that would actually lead to an environment that is very pro-liberty. Okay. Yeah. Because we would be more concerned about protecting our own individual rights than we were about being concerned about subjecting everybody else to the subjugation of our intent.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, it would destroy the party
and
structure.
the right both play on this, saying that the left is going to subjugate you with these things. Okay. Trans, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
Okay. And the left does the same thing with the right. Okay. The right's going to do this to you. Okay. They're going to subjugate when they're going to, by taking away their right. Okay. We need to quit looking at that, and we need to start looking at the literal protection of individual rights. And
Correct.
Government's first responsibility, and it's in the Declaration of Independence, it's hinted at in the Constitution in the preamble, is the protection of the rights of the individual.
Correct.
That is their first mandate. That is the whole reason why governments were instituted amongst men.
Right.
Okay. And I'm using men as a descriptor for everyone.
Mankind. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay. So that being said, is our government protecting our rights? And that would be a categorically no. They are not. If anything, they are robbing us of our rights. And that is grounds for our changing of government. And the easiest way to change government is by getting it back to its constitutional foundation. And the only way we can do that is via we the people, because the government will not do it themselves.
No, there's no incentive to, unless the people impose it on them.
Okay, that being said, get involved. Each and every one of you watching this, regardless whether it's during our live stream or if it's at a later time and date, get involved. Become involved in your community. Start transforming. The easiest way to do this is to start transforming in our communities first. Get them so they are protecting your individual rights. And the best way to do that is once your community starts protecting your individual rights against encroachments from the state and the federal governments, then we can start looking at doing the counties, getting them to do the same. Once we get the counties on board, then we can start looking at getting the states on board. Once we get the states going, then we can actually bring federal government back into check. But we have to start being involved, each and every one of us.
Yeah. The country was started in a bar. And the reason I say that is because the bar was the tavern was the place, the public house was the place where people would congregate. That was social media at the time. People getting together in the communities, talking with each other about how they were being governed. America was born in a bar, and people talk at a bar.
And honestly, right now, in this day and age with technology and everything else that we have, there is no excuse for any of us not to be involved.
Right.
Okay. Your town halls post the minutes of their meetings.
Yep.
Okay. Your town councils. Many of them live stream them. Okay. There are quite a few of them that actually allow comment via the live streams.
Yeah.
Okay. It takes nothing to get on the agenda for public comment at any one of your council meeting, your town council, county legislation. You can get there. Okay. You can be there. You can have your opinion heard.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But you can't do it if you're sitting at your armchair looking at the latest Kardashian deal.
Yeah.
Or watching the housewives of wherever.
Stealing my lines.
Or scrolling X. I mean, how much time do you spend? How much time do we honestly spend scrolling through social media at any given time? Facebook, X, Blue Sky.
Well,
which
here's
is a new one.
here's a challenge. Okay, you want to go through X? You want to go through Facebook? You want to go through YouTube? You want to go through? Find your local government on each one of those platforms.
Yep.
Follow them and make sure you are commenting on them.
Yeah.
You're talking
Okay?
about doing
right
homework.
there is a place to start.
Well, you're talking about people doing their homework, and we know media and elections have been very appreciative of people not doing their homework.
Mm-hmm.
We may
Right.
see a change. We may see a change now.
But if
Actually, they
but if-
rely on it.
Yeah, if it's simple enough to go on and follow your average timeline users, like the accounts that just happen to pop up in your timeline, you specifically following your government and making them realize that you're paying attention, even if you don't pursue it a lot, just the fact that your eyeball is glued to what they have to put out there makes them know that they're under scrutiny, and that makes them very nervous. Because at any given moment, if they have thousands of people that are looking at them, any one of those thousands of people could suddenly show up at a meeting. And they don't like that. They want to be able to operate with autonomy with you in the dark. So we need to bring the sunlight. That's our job.
So
as
Joel
people being governed.
says he's disappointed in the lack of civility of people's social media comments on political sites and government sites. Okay. Actually, Joe, there doesn't need to be civility. The thing is we need to get our messages across. Okay. And one way to do that is going to these political and governmental sites. In particular, though, the governmental sites.
Yeah.
Okay. And you have a problem with the way that a police organization is conducting operations in your community, your police force, find their social media.
Yep.
Start commenting. Start pointing out where they have issues. Okay. Civil discourse does. But sometimes you have to abandon civil discourse, and sometimes you need to be really crude. and blunt.
Well,
For example,
truthful, I would say blatant truth
Yes,
is sometimes
but you need to be truthful.
for example, the school board meetings. I mean, you sometimes see these parents that lately have gone to school board meetings over the latest issue, whatever it may be, and the school board tries to shut down comments from parents. These parents start out with civil discourse, but then they get pushback because they're telling the truth, but the school board doesn't want anybody else to hear it in the room. You see these parents get very vocal and very passionate and sometimes very vulgar. But that's necessary, and it's protected, not just by the Constitution, but also through case law. There's one particular incident I'm thinking of where the guy actually had a videotape made while he was giving his comments, and he's definitely somebody that was a naturalized citizen. He came from somewhere else, but he understood the law, and he made it very clear to them that it doesn't matter how you feel about what he's saying, as long as his information is accurate, as long as he's being truthful. He can be as passionate, he can be as vulgar, he can be as forceful as he wants to be in order to get his message across to the people that are behind the desk. And that's only because they are public servants that are funded by public money.
No, the key is if we are paying attention, then see the vulgarity. I know there are some people who will focus on vulgarity.
Right.
Well, if you're in Loudoun County, as an example, people may have forgotten about what happened in Loudoun County, where a young girl in ninth grade was assaulted because of the transgender regulations that were put in place, and then that was covered up by the school board, and another girl was affected. And so therefore, when the father was reacting to that at the event, many people said, oh, he's being so mean and vulgar. Well, he's emotional because look at the consequence of their actions, their lack of listening to the parents, the lack of protection for the students actually had a very negative consequence. So that's why we saw that there was such a big backlash. So, I mean, that's an example of, okay, this is where vulgarity comes from. But the biggest thing is we need to be passionate and we need to have these conversations, not just at school boards, but at every level of government, so that they know they may not get the next election. They may not be reelected. They will be held accountable, that we do want to have positive change and not just another empty promise and told that go, it's the other guys are the bad guys. And if you just vote me in the next time, then you'll get it. Kind of like what we have with Kamala Harris in this election. Oh, she knows how to fix the economy, but you had to vote for her first. She didn't want to do anything. She didn't. Even to this day, Joe Biden could implement the wonderful ideas that they say will fix the economy. There's nothing preventing them from doing that now, but they wanted your vote. So either they're punishing you now for not voting the way they wanted you to, or they never had anything more than the promise, and therefore, they didn't deserve to get reelected. But we need to have this conversation. We need to mention this to these politicians online and say, hey, guess what? If you had such a great plan, doesn't matter you didn't get reelected. You're still in power now. Do it now. Do it now. If it's such a great idea, if it's so effective, it will help so many people. Do it now. And then we'll tell Trump, keep doing it because it's working. Or no. Or tell him, no, get rid of it because it's not. But don't blackmail us into, well, you got to vote me in, and then next time I might do it for you. See, that's being involved. Demand accountability.
Yep.
They say they had a great plan. Where is it? Oh, well, I'm not elected. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if you get.
I guarantee. Okay, and Jess said that she doesn't use X and she barely uses Facebook.
Jess, yeah, I know.
Okay. Every politician, guaranteed, has social media. They have X, they have Facebook, they have Instagram, they have blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think they have TikTok because federally they can't, right?
Some of them do.
Yes, they can. If it's personal. It cannot be funded by or taped using government.
But every
devices,
one of them have social media. Every one of them. Okay. Every governmental organization has social media. Okay. Find them. Comment. Okay. If they're doing something you don't like, even posts that you're commenting on isn't related, you can still get the word out because people are watching. People are seeing those comments.
Yep.
Okay. If you do see posts that are contrary to your beliefs, get involved in those. Okay. Become the number one commenter on that post. Bring attention.
Yep.
That's one way. And you can do that from the comfort of your armchair, staring at your phone. That's one way to be involved.
It's the virtual equivalent of standing outside their office and staring at them through the window and like making hand gestures.
Make them know your name.
All right. Hey guys.
Yep. We need to wrap this up.
3 hours. Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to go ahead and end this. Okay. But like I said, get them to know your name. Get involved. Because the only one that's going to change anything is we, the people.
Yep.
The government will never change itself, not without the people instituting that change.
Correct.
Thank you, everyone. We're here every Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern time. We are going to be doing some more educational type stuff. We need to start looking more at education. Okay. Everybody knows what the news is. We need to start educating people on how to effectively start changing our government. Because face it, regardless of whether you're on the left or you're on the right, government is not working. We need to start changing it. And the only one that can change it is us. Get involved. Join organizations like the Liberty First Foundation. You can find us at l1f.us. Become a member. Help us get the message out. Help us to educate others about this true mandate for America.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, everyone. We'll see you all next week.
Live free, fight well, liberty first.